Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs. Oops, I just dropped something. And season 6. I'm still getting used to saying that. And episode 897 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada. Always 100% Canadian and still beaverific. Today, recording day is Thursday, April 30th, 2026, and it is a gorgeous day here at the Beaver Lodge. Lots of fluffy clouds in the sky, but I can see the sun just popping up above the roof in front of me. Again, you can see the little sunlight reflections there. So a good, lovely day there. Hopefully, I'll be able to find a tennis match today so that I can continue on my quest to lose a little bit of this winter weight and find my bikini body by the time Christmas comes around. Oh, my word. Yeah. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kits and Cubs, how is your mental health doing today? I am doing well. I'm just hoping that, no, I think the thing I dropped fell all the way on the floor, not just on me. Darn. I'm doing well. Just tad out of sorts because as you saw, I was putting the headphones in as the camera came on. Usually the headphones are already in, but as I was rolling the credits, there was a call from the little Beaver's room, and I had to make a sprint. So that when the credits weren't over, you weren't just looking at this wonderful view of sunrise over the limestone city, but but no beaver. And then I just have to like gracefully slide in to the camera. So yes, please excuse me for my lack of earpiece as we start the show today. But hey, how's your mental health today? I am doing well. Clearly, I'm doing well. I'm in a good mood. I'm already laughing away and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, in a good mood, feeling fine. Um, Off my usual schedule. I got to bed early last night, and I was so proud of myself after watching the Montreal Canadiens win, of course. Go Habs, go Habs, go! So the Senators sympathy polo Worked its magic yesterday. Another close game. Jeez. And those last few minutes, oh my god, just like clutching my like just dump the puck out. It's like they just could not get that. I mean, Tampa Bay took the goaltender out so that there was an extra player, but the Canadians just couldn't get the puck out of the zone for like the last minute and a half or 2 minutes. It was just like, oh God, please do not score a last minute goal and send this into overtime because one, my heart can't take it, and two, this Beaver needs to go to bed. So, so I got to bed at a very reasonable time, and then, I think it is like 4.5 hours later, I just woke up, and here I am at something like 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like, "Yeah, well, I guess I should start the day then." This fell got sleepy somewhere in there and then finally got a little nap, but, yeah, I'm, the clock is a little bit all over the place, today, but I was sleeping so well too. There was, like, just no reason to just wake up in the middle of it. I just wanted to keep that vibe going for another few hours, but, nope, I woke up. And yes, Katavi yes, that hockey game in Buffalo showed that there may be heart in the USA. There is, yeah, there is. I have no doubt about that, right? I mean, we get into this whole debate, right? This whole discussion about we don't have a beef with Americans, we have a beef with the government, but then the government is elected by people, and this guy was elected a second time, so we do have a beef with certain Americans, certainly. Um, but overall, right? I mean, there's been instances. There's another clip going around back, I think, in 2024, when something similar happened in Canada, and everybody sang the U.S. national anthem. Uh, but it's a nice moment. It's a nice moment. It's just one of those, you know, one of those, oh, geez, you guys, shucks, moments, right? So, yes, g we always have to distinguish, between, the people in the administration, and then, of course, the people are not a monolith. So there are some, wonderful, more than some. So starting to sound like the, Trump like Donald Trump, and some Americans are good people, I assume. No. There's a lot of, the government doesn't speak for everyone. That's for sure. And I see a lot of those like not all American type posts, and we get it. But the problem is that you know, I guess where the debate sort of ends on our end. It may not be all Americans, but it is enough Americans that you voted them back in a second time. So you know we we the not all Americans maybe doesn't hit, um, or land, at point B as, those who say it would like it, or intend or hope it would at point A when they say it. For some of us, our understanding, our willingness to be understanding might be somewhat tempered, these days. Um, but yes, it is a great moment. You have some politicians. You have Adam Chambers again. I guess trying to make a name for himself. It's the second or third time that I see him out there. Or maybe the conservatives are trying to put the team forward so that more people Canada can see them rather than the leader because the leader seems to be turning people off. Yay. Um, but he tried to link like both those things. It shows that that there's a lot of love between the people. So we need to get back to so people need to get back to the negotiating table. And it's like, no, 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 no. The fact that there's still love among the people, of course, because, uh, the people who don't support what it is Donald Trump is doing as well, most likely, and us, doesn't mean that's because we sang "Oh Canada" because someone's mic went out is not a sign that we need to get back to the negotiating table with people who probably don't even know that the first word of "Oh Canada" is "Oh." I'm just saying, maybe you should ask him. Might be surprised. So, um, yeah, I know it's a politician thing. It's, to try to take an event and then try to add something to it to make a political spin to try to make a point. But I mean, sometimes it doesn't work. That one didn't work. Particularly since we know that the conservative stance is, don't acknowledge that there's a rupture and stay there and you know give them everything that they want. Well, actually, they don't say give them everything that they want, but every time every time the American, well, at the beginning anyway, it was give them everything that they want pretty much. Uh but uh, there's you still have the leader of the opposition saying that he could get a tariff-free deal, which is making everyone around him laugh because nobody's been able to achieve it, number one. But number two, he's got far fewer skills than the guy that we elected, and the guy that we elected can't even get it done at the moment. And it's very clear that, the other side doesn't want one. In fact, I believe Pierre or somebody was asked in an interview. I can't remember if it was Pierre, if it was Andrew Scheer or someone else. But it's like, yeah, but okay, because if we have to live in the world as it is, but what if it is just some type of like pathological love for tariffs and nothing is going to change that? And still, the person being interviewed was like, let nothing distract you from the primary objective. It's like a tariff-free deal is still possible. Let's just remind everyone that the only tariff-free deal that has ever been on the table is 51st statehood. All right, so it's just not serious from the conservative camp and from the palliative camp at the moment on that front. Um, so here we are today. We have a majority liberal government that's now in effect because the three by-election winners have entered the House and taken their seats. Uh, Committees have indeed been changed. You have some conservatives screaming bloody murder already. um, it- uh, they've got this thing called there's a something called prescribe IT. I think it was a supposed to be some type of online prescription system that never really actually took off, and then I guess was canceled, and there was some money that went behind that, and the conservatives are going, ah, scandal, and trying to make something of that. Maybe it's a scandal, maybe it's not a scandal. You never know. With these guys, often they say everything is a scandal. There's been one or two things that have come through, but there's other things, that just haven't. The ad scam thing didn't really work. It really wasn't. Um, you know, Not ad scam, sorry, arrive scam, right? They just add scam to everything and, say it's a scandal. And now they're claiming because, the government is obviously going to use the majority on that committee to say, like, okay, let's move on from this. Whether it is something, whether it isn't something, we don't know at the moment. That the conservatives will keep picking at it. If it is something, eventually it will, break through the surface. But there was a press conference from the people on that committee a couple of days ago that I watched, and then yesterday, it the press conference didn't really make it into the news, but yesterday, the issue of Prescribe IT did make it into the news as a result of um, the switch on the committees, which then gave the leader, um, I guess the person who was the chair of that committee at prior to the switch, the opportunity to say the same things they said at press availability, and this time it got picked up. Um, so there you'll see some articles about that. along the way. Um, And even though we've just had three by-elections, we may be looking at a few more. One, Alexandre Boulris, as we told you yesterday, has left the NDP, is still sitting as an independent while he's waiting for the election to be called or the nomination. Is it the nomination or the election? Probably the election, I guess, in the riding of Gouin in the province of Quebec, provincially for Quebec Solidaire for the Quebec election coming up in October. Uh, Typically, Quebec Solidaire had a policy to get more diverse candidates, gender diverse candidates running. That if a seat that they had was currently filled by a man, and that person was not seeking to hold that seat, that the next nominee that would occupy it would either be a woman or a non-binary person. That was the party's policy. They made an exception for Boulris, namely, first of all, very known, very loved, uh, definitely part of the movement. I think Léa Gazal, I think it is, her name is, who is the current co-spokesperson for the party, says like, we've known him for 20 years, he's definitely, one of us type of thing, basically saying that, he's credible, and was actually one of the founding members of the movement. So, basically they're welcoming him back home. Uh, so he's jumped away from the NDP to sit as an independent in the House until such time as comes time to leave to go run in that race. So that seat is going to be vacated. Where Nathaniel Erskine Smith in Beaches, East York, is eyeing the nomination race in Scarborough Southwest provincially to fill the seat that was vacated by Dali Begum, who has just entered the House, and that would create another by-election. And it looks as of uh, today, there was some more news with regard to the third person we were expecting to be leaving. Sort of had some news about it. It's Jonathan Wilkinson, who was a minister in a Trudeau government, believe was a clean tech entrepreneur who was brought in and who served a time as Minister of Natural Resources, and I believe another time as a Minister of the Environment or Minister of Energy. I'd have to look that up to be sure which it was. I'm not sure if he fulfilled all three or only two of those three. But he wrote a message here that was published 51 minutes ago. And let's see if I have here in English. This one in French. There you go. Dear friends, today the Prime Minister announced that I have accepted his invitation to serve as Canada's ambassador to the European Union. As a result, I will be vacating my position as your Member of Parliament in the coming months. I left the private sector in 2015 because I believe public service was the best way for me to tackle the work that has defined much of my life, fighting climate change while building a thriving low-carbon economy that creates opportunity in all regions of this country. I chose to run here because I believed North Vancouver Capilano could help lead Canada, and that Canada could help lead the world in that work. That belief is even stronger today than it was a decade ago. Over these years, I've had the privilege of serving you as your Member of Parliament and as Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard, Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, and Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Together, we have protected our coasts, advanced ambitious climate policy, supported major projects, and helped build a cleaner and more innovative Canadian economy that can compete and win in the world. This decision is not easy. Representing this community and serving all Canadians at the cabinet table has been the greatest honor of my professional life. But 2026 is not 2015. The world has changed in fundamental ways, and Canada now faces new economic, geopolitical, and environmental tests. Our closest trading relationship has become less predictable, and we are being called to build greater resilience in our economy and alliances. In this context, the Prime Minister has asked me to take on a different role in service to our country, one that looks outward, but is very much focused on protecting and advancing Canadians' interests here at home. I'm taking on this new role for the same reason I entered public life in 2015, to serve Canada. I believe that at this moment, this is where I can best contribute to the long term interests of Canadians, including the people of this riding. The European Union, Canada's most important partners on trade, climate, security, and the defense of democracy. In Brussels, I will work to ensure that this partnership delivers real benefits for Canadians. Public service, at its core, is about answering when your country calls. I have confidence in the Prime Minister's judgment about the challenges Canada faces and where I can best contribute. When he asked me to consider this role, I thought carefully about the sacrifices it would mean for my family and for this community, and about the unique opportunity to defend and advance Canadian values and interests at a time when the international order is under strain. Ultimately, I decided to accept not because it is easy, but because I believe it is important. In the months ahead, I will continue to serve as your MP until the transition is complete and my constituency office will remain fully engaged on the issues that matter to you. My deepest thanks to the residents of this remarkable community. 4 times you entrusted me to represent you in the House of Commons and bring the North Shore's voice to the cabinet table, where decisions about our environment, our economy, and our security were made. Your engagement, candor, and belief that we can always do better have inspired me every single day. I love this country deeply. I believe without hesitation that Canada is the best country in the world, not because we are perfect, but because we face our flaws honestly and never stop working to be better. Our story is one of resilience, expanding rights, and building a more inclusive and fair society step by step. Our future will depend on whether we are prepared to stand up for those values at home and abroad, to defend democracy, advance reconciliation, tackle the climate crisis, and build an economy that truly works for everyone. Sincerely, the Honorable Jonathan Wilkinson. So there you have it. He will be off to be the ambassador of Canada to the European Union. And as I mentioned, Kits and Cubs, extremely accomplished gentleman here. According to the CC's Darren Major and Catherine Cullen, MP and former Cabinet Jonathan Wilkinson will be Canada's next ambassador to the European Union, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Thursday. With his vast experience as a minister, entrepreneur, and businessperson, Jonathan Wilkinson will drive this mission to help create greater security, prosperity, and sustainability on both sides of the Atlantic, Carney said in a statement. Wilkinson has long been rumored to be up for the job as Canada hasn't had an ambassador to the EU bloc since the fall. Wilkinson will take up his new role this summer, the Prime Minister's office head. Wilkinson replaces former Liberal leader Stéphane Dion, who Carney thanked, quote, for his distinguished service and contributions, and he did do a very good job in the position. That's someplace he was more naturally suited to be than in the cut and thrust of politics. Wilkinson said his appointment is a, quote, very emotional moment for him and his family because it means stepping aside as an MP. And then from the letter I stated before, he says, this decision was not easy. Representing this community and serving all Canadians at the cabinet table has been the greatest honor of my professional life. But 2026 is not 2015. The world has changed in fundamental ways, and Canada now faces new economic, geopolitical, and environmental tests. Wilkinson said that he's accepted the posting because of his deep commitment to Canada and a belief that at this moment, this is where I can contribute most. Wilkinson held senior cabinet roles as Environment Minister and Natural Resources Minister under Justin Trudeau, but wasn't named to Carney's cabinet after last year's election. First elected in 2015, Wilkinson has comfortably held his North Vancouver riding, renamed North Vancouver Capilano last year for the Liberals through 4 elections. Wilkinson's absence will bring Carney's thin majority government down 1 seat, but the Liberals will still control the House with 172 seats, not counting the Speaker, to the opposition's combined 169 seats. So there you go, Mr. Wilkinson on his way Again, indeed long rumored around the same time when we were talking about Christopher Freeland uh, leaving. Um, and before that, when I'm talking about that, talking about her leaving even before she got uh, the position at the Rhodes Trust. So even way back then, there was talk about Wilkinson and Blair and Freeland, all three of them, being on their way out for and going towards diplomatic um, positions. So this is finally manifesting itself here. Let's see, what else do we have for you before we get into the meat of things. For those of you who have been watching your investments, the market has been bouncing around a lot. We finally have an up day again, it would appear. The pre-markets for the Dow are indicating a positive opening, which to the price of gold, which has dropped a lot over the past, has also rebounded today. I think up about $84 an ounce or something. Um, so maybe not the somewhat correction yet that everybody expects will come. What's been happening in the last few days may not be the start of that. However, what has really swung over the past little while again is the price of oil and gas, with the price of crude back up over 100 at 100 nearly $105, and the price of Brent nearly at 109. Um, it's a lot. Just this week alone, crude is up 11% and Brent is up 13%, which is substantial. Gold had been down over 4% so far just for the week. So people were wondering if maybe some type of correction was coming in. So a little bit more of some stabilizing. Not quite sure what the reason for the stabilizing in the other areas are. However, the swings to the oil market always could have something to do with what's going on, of course, with um, Iran and the U.S. Israel thing going there. But also with something we mentioned yesterday, I think it was yesterday, about the UAE, United Arab Emirates, quitting OPEC. And so just there was an article by Al Jazeera's Virginia Petromarchi that I thought I might have a little bit of insight as to what is going on, and how this could affect things forward, because it is a big deal. It says, after decades of membership, the United Arab Emirates has decided to quit the oil producers group OPEC in order to focus on national interests and forge its own path, it has said. The move is seen as a major blow to the Vienna-based oil cartel, but will not spell the end of it altogether, observers say. The UAE's decision to quit after years of open dissatisfaction with the oil cartel's policy of capping members' production as a way to control prices and stabilize the market. The country has invested billions of dollars in increasing its oil production capacity from 3 to 5 million barrels per day by 2027. As it has grown its ability to produce more oil, it has demanded a larger quota than has been assigned to it. The moves also come at a particularly tricky moment as the region and the rest of the world grapples with an energy crisis triggered by the US-Israel war on Iran, which began on February 28th. Tehran responded by hitting back at Israel, US military assets, and other infrastructure in Gulf countries. It also closed off most access to the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's supplies of oil and liquefied natural gas are shipped from Gulf producers. Before the start of the war, the UAE production capacity had grown to 4.8 million barrels per day, but under its OPEC agreement, it was only allowed to produce 3.2 billion barrels per day. Experts say its departure from the cartel is unlikely to have an immediate impact on the market because the UAE's exports, like those of all of its neighboring countries, are currently constrained by Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz. The UAE has been able to sell some of its oil via the Fujairah terminal, which sits on the Gulf of Oman, allowing it to circumvent the waterway. Last year, it exported 1.7 million barrels per day of crude oil and refined fuels this way, not enough to meet its ambitions. This could all change, however, if the conflict ends with an agreement between Iran and the US that allows for the resumption of free navigation through the strait. For now, that is up in the air, as the US continues its naval blockade of Iranian ports, and Iran in return refuses to allow any foreign flagged ships to transit the strait. And it seems that yesterday, the President of the United States, lame duck or lame duck à l'orange, has given instructions to extend the U.S. blockade. Again, this war that was supposed to take a couple of days, then a few weeks, then 6 weeks, and is now hitting 8, looks like it's going to be going on for, again, longer. But hey, it's not a war, and it's certainly not a forever one now, is it? No. Iran has also indicated that it may wish to maintain its leverage over the strait post-conflict through a system of tolls. Should traffic return pre-war levels, however, the UAE could potentially flood the market with its 1.6 million barrels per day of extra production, equivalent to about 1.5% of global oil supply, enough to give it a serious edge in the global energy market, experts say. Kingsmill Bond and energy strategist and think tank Ember Future says the UAE's move is a clever one. Quote, they are clearly preparing for the period after the war because now that we have reached peak oil demand and we are entering a new environment, they want to be free from the constraints of OPEC, Bond said. The UAE is preparing for a world after the Iran war where oil demand is in decline and the OPEC's power to maintain control and discipline will be weaker, he added, referring to Abu Dhabi's strategy of maximizing its oil production to sell as much of its oil as possible before energy markets move beyond fossil fuels. There could also be the fact as well that given that a lot of oil installations have been destroyed or damaged, that and there are about 10 million barrels per day that are usually in circulation, that are not in circulation, that they could be ready to go to fill that gap with its excess, some of that gap with its excess production right away, which means gaining some market share that other people will lose while they are making repairs. And that might be market share that they may find difficult to get back afterwards. The article continues. This is in contrast to Saudi Arabia's goal of keeping oil production by OPEC members capped in order to maintain high oil prices in the longer term. Officials close to Saudi Arabia were swift to downplay the move this week. Quote, it's not a major blow, especially for OPEC Plus, which consists of 23 countries, and one country going out doesn't mean anything, Mohammed al-Saban, Saudi Arabia's former senior oil advisor, told Al Jazeera. The UAE's move was more a political decision, he said, under the influence of the West, which has long sought to stoke division within the cartel. Indeed, U.S. President Donald Trump is known for his hostility to OPEC and has previously accused the cartel of, quote, ripping off the rest of the world by inflating oil prices. Quote, but this is nonsense because the UAE knows that OPEC adjusts production to maintain an equilibrium and nothing else, al-Saban said. OPEC has shown itself to be adaptable in the past. Founded in the 1960s by Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, and Venezuela, it has survived challenging times and other withdrawals in past years, including by Qatar, Indonesia, Ecuador, and Angola. Quote, it will be less influential than before, but it won't disappear, said Robin Mills, a non-resident fellow at Columbia University's Center on Global Energy Policy and CEO of Qamar Energy in Dubai. The cartel hit the headlines in 1973 when an alliance of its Arab members implemented an embargo on countries supporting Israel. It was the first time that Arab states had exercised this sort of collective action, and it had enormous consequences on the world stage. Back then, the group accounted for half of the global oil market. Today, as other countries such as the US and Norway have become big oil producers themselves, OPEC's share is lower at 33% of the global market. The alliance has also increased its cooperation with 12 other oil-producing nations spanning from Latin America to Russia. This larger grouping of OPEC nations and these partners is known as OPEC+. Despite the UAE's departure, other members may still see the benefits of sticking to the club. Quote, the ability to act collectively on managing the market and ensure that prices don't go too high and not too low. That was the reason to form OPEC+, said Mills. The strategy has proven effective during a number of crises, including the 2014 oil price crash and the COVID pandemic, when the group maintained a coordinated response. But some believe the UAE's withdrawal is not just about markets. The UAE departure is above all the visible sign of a deep regional rupture between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi first, but beyond that, between two incompatible visions of what Gulf order should look like, writes Anas Abdoun, an international consultant in energy and global affairs for Al Jazeera. The UAE has been on the receiving end of Iran's most intense attacks since joint US Israel strikes on Iran began. Of Iran's regional neighbors that have come into the firing line, the UAE has been hit more than Israel and all Gulf Cooperation countries, or GCC, together. Throughout the war, which is currently at an impasse amid a shaky ceasefire between Tehran and Washington, the UAE has been pushing in private for much more assertive policies against Iran. While the government has maintained a defensive posture, influencers and public figures have openly called for war. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Oman, by contrast, have supported a more diplomatic approach. The dramatic departure from OPEC is just the latest shift by Abu Dhabi along a foreign policy path which diverges from its neighbors. It was the first Arab country to normalize ties with Israel by signing the Abraham Accords in 2020. Quote, it seems that the war might have exacerbated the differences that the Emirates felt. Gregory Gauss III, associate fellow at the Middle East Institute, told an online webinar hosted by the Institute on Wednesday. Ultimately, Abdoun says the real loser from the UAE's decision to quit OPEC now is, quote, the idea of collective capacity for Arab fuel producing states to shape the global energy order. So that is what is going on. All right. Let's see here, kids and cubs. Just going to check my notes and make sure I ticked off the early housekeeping things I wanted to make sure that I mentioned. Okay, yes. So let's get into the meat of it, kids and cubs. First of all, today, certain politicians, how would you put it? If you are a centrist or somewhat on the left of the political spectrum, you might be feeling little glimmers of hope lately, given results in Hungary and given special election results in the United States and opinion polling in the United States showing that Donald Trump is at record lows and that the midterms, if they are allowed to happen, could bring some changes that are of benefit to us. On the national scene, seeing the extremely slow motion disintegration of the Canada's incredibly shrinking leader of the opposition and the Conservative Party of Canada seems to give people a little bit of hope. In the province of Quebec, the CAQ seems to be on the ropes, and they are an ideologically conservative party. And in Ontario as well, Doug Ford seems to be on the ropes. It seems to be working everywhere except for frickin' Alberta. Once again, Alberta's not rowing in the same direction as the rest of the team. Go figure. There's Indian polling that's been out, and it's not the best, it would seem, for Mr. Nenshi. Now, there's a lot of people, again, that seem to do the thing when there's public opinion polling that comes down that's not favorable, that says that this polling is not reliable. Of course, once again, we've mentioned it a couple of times on our show. This is polling by Janet Brown, who is the deity of polling in Alberta. She focuses just on Alberta, and she has a record that is pretty stellar. A record that people other polling companies would envy, would love to have for themselves. All right. And our friends from the breakdown say the same thing here. The reaction to this tweet is fascinating. Janet Brown is not a UCP shill. She's one of the best in the business, if not the best. If you don't like the data, the next question is a simple one. What are you going to do to move the needle? And according to Jennifer Keeler from CT News, it says, 3 years into her mandate, Premier Danielle Smith and her United Conservative Party government continue to enjoy solid approval ratings, according to new polling from CBC News by Janet Brown Opinion Research. And with support for the NDP slipping, the poll suggests the UCP would likely win an even stronger majority than it boasts now if an election were to be held today. Oh my God. Alberta, this is political masochism. We know a little bit about that in Ontario. We might be getting rid of ours. Follow our lead? Please? Wow. Quote, we haven't seen a government have a honeymoon this long since really the Ralph Klein days, pollster Janet Brown said. But perhaps more remarkably, the most popular political leader in the province appears to be a Liberal. Prime Minister Mark Carney's approval rating was higher among respondents than Smith's and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's, a scenario that may have once seemed unthinkable in right-leaning Alberta. The question, on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 means you're not at all impressed and 10 means you are very impressed, how would you rate each of the following party leaders? And the very impressed category is rated as people who gave a note of 7 to 10. And for Carney, that is 46%. For Smith, that's 34%. Poilievre, 29%. Nenshi, 20%. And Lewis, 5%. So Nenshi is running 14 points behind Smith in terms of how impressed they are with his leadership. On the not impressed at all side, if we're looking at the negatives, Carney 32, Smith 44, Poilievre 41, Nenshi 42, Lewis 49. So Carney has a positive, a net 14 positive score here. Smith has a net negative 10, but Nenshi has a net negative 22. So it's not that Smith is particularly liked. They just dislike Nenshi more. Poilievre has a 41 for a net negative of 12. So when you look at the Prime Minister's net positive, that's a 26-point spread between them two. And Avi Lewis, relatively new to the scene, of course, 49% say not at all impressed, but he has also the largest not sure at 27%, so haven't formed an opinion, whereas Nenshi is only 11, Poilievre 5, Smith 4, and Carney less than that already. The numbers come from Janet Brown Opinion Research, 9th Road Head poll for CBC Calgary. The Calgary-based polling company directed a random survey of 1,200 Albertans between April 7th and 22, carried out by Trend Research. The survey has a margin of error of plus or minus 2.8 percentage points, 19 times out of 20. The poll suggests 49% of respondents would vote for the UCP in an election held today, compared to 36% for the NDP. The NDP is 13 points behind after everything that's going on in use everything that's known about that party and her. Yike. 8% would vote for other parties. The poll describes 7% as orphans, people who say they will vote but are shopping around to determine who they will vote for. If you're asking for voting intention, it shows here that for all of Alberta, 49% UCP as mentioned, 30% NDP, 8% would vote for other parties, 7% consider themselves orphans. And if you're looking in Edmonton itself, the NDP leads there with 45% to the UCP's 38%, with 8% orphans and 8% voting for other parties and 9% orphans. But if you go to Calgary, it's UCP 48, the NDP 37, other parties 9, orphans 6. And then outside Calgary and Edmonton, the UCP's got 62, and the NDP's got 23%, with 9% others and 6% orphans. So yeah, article goes on to say that's lower than the UCP's vote share in 2023, but the NDP have slipped even further, widening the gap between the parties from 9 points to 13, and the UCP would increase their seat count, according to the poll, winning 9 more seats than in 2023. The NDP would lose 9. The seat projections use the current electoral map before the province changes any riding boundaries, and that's a story on its own. It seems that there was a independent electoral commission, as there always is for this type of thing, and it came out with some recommendations. I'm guessing that would have added some seats in the cities, which would have diluted I guess, the power of the regions, or the voice of the regions somewhat. Even though, if you're looking at the numbers, the cities are already underrepresented in the legislature. The number of people represented per riding is way higher. And there's most of the population growth has been there, so that there's a couple of extra seats were needed there. It seems that the UCP government is just going to unilaterally decided not to accept that report, and is dissenting and is just going to draw their own map. They're just going to draw their own map. Yep, just that's what they decided. Um, yeesh. Um, yeah, not not good. Um, and yeah, this is a big difference from the election, because in the election, 49% of the vote went in 2023 went to the UCP and 38 to the NDP for an 11-point spread. And if there were now, right now, it's showing 58 to 29, which would be, well, 29-point spread, basically the uh, in terms of the number of seats that would win. Sorry, that's not percentage. The number of seats. Yeah, the UCP would have double the amount of seats the NDP has, rather than just an 11-point lead. Smith's personal approval rating is down slightly from Brown's polling last year, but 52% of respondents still said they are very or somewhat impressed with the premier. Brown says Smith is similar to Klein in that she has a knack for making voters feel heard, even if some policies can spark controversy. She says Smith and her party can partially claim credit for their standing, but it also reflects weakness on the part of the opposition. Quote, I think it's a combination of the UCP staying on the right side of voters and maybe the NDP failing to register, she said. If I were the UCP, I wouldn't get too high on my horse. I would recognize the fact that they're probably getting help from the NDP. NDP leader Naheed Nenchi's approval has dropped 4 points from Brown's 2025 poll, with 47% of respondents now impressed with him. Brown says Nenchi has not resonated with voters after his leadership win in the way some might have thought. Part of that could reflect challenges for an opposition party in today's media landscape, said Lisa Young, a political science professor at the University of Calgary. Without the elevated status of government, and as more media platforms compete for eyeballs, Young says the NDP are struggling to capture attention. The poll also suggests a growing frustration with the cost of living. A slight majority of respondents said the economy is getting worse, up 10 points from when the question was asked last year. But despite all the growing economic uncertainty, ironically, it doesn't seem to be affecting support for the government, Brown said. That could always change if the war in the Middle East worsens inflation significantly in the year ahead. Young says voters could look for somewhere else to put the blame. Young says the results of the fall referendum and how Smith handles it could also shift the dynamics before next year's provincial election. Quote, I do think that this sort of the calm before the storm. This is sort of the calm before the storm in some ways politically, and we should look at the numbers through that lens. It would seem many in the province are welcoming Carney with open arms. 65% of respondents said they were impressed with the Prime Minister. It is really striking to look at the levels of support for Mark Carney, said Young. I cannot think of the last time that a federal Liberal Party leader had favorable numbers like this. Um, Brown notes the approval doesn't necessarily equal voting intention, meaning even if Carney is well liked, the Liberals shouldn't count on Alberta suddenly turning red. But it could be a cause of concern for the Conservatives, with Pierre Poilievre's favorability dropping 7 points from last year's poll from 61 to 54%. We asked people how impressed they are. I think what impresses Albertans is winning elections, said Brown, and I think Poilievre is suffering because he didn't bring home that election victory that he promised. Despite losing the last federal election, Poilievre won his party's leadership review in Calgary in January with 87.4% of the vote. Opinions of Carney could shift if he's not able to deliver for the province, Young said, namely if the Memorandum of Understanding fails to result in a new pipeline. NDP leader Avi Lewis had the highest unfavorability rating, with 49% of respondents unimpressed. 27% were unsure, perhaps not a surprise given he was elected leader only shortly before the poll was conducted. But it would seem a solid contingent has made up their mind on Lewis, which could be a problem for Nenshi if he's tied too closely to his federal counterpart. So that's what going on a little bit in Alberta. Things not going well for Nenshi over there. On the federal level, for Liev, as you know, things are really terrible for him. Yesterday on a political show, I finally heard the word that I've used several times, flailing, being used to describe him. Um, and it really is that what is going on. He's just trying stuff. Um, it's not working for him. On Sunday, 3:38, Canada adjusted its polling aggregate numbers here, and the you wonder how wide the spread can get because, like, I started to think last week that yeah, okay, now it's starting to maximize. Um, but so far, it's still going. So if I show you this here, let's see. Come back, Kiss and Cubs. So sorry. It's just taking a little bit of time. There you go. That's the vote projection here. And you can see that Liberals is showing Liberals 46, Conservatives 34, dated April 26th. The week before was 46-35. The week before that, also 46-35. So the spread gets just a little bit wider, still yet another point wider. And if you're looking at seat counts, now we're looking at 217 for the Liberals, way above anything that's come before here in the chart. And this graph goes back to May 2025. So I guess it's a full year chart here. And the Conservatives with 95. And just last week when we were looking at it, when I thought, okay, now they got to be maxing out now, it was 215 to 98. So, yeah, the spread continues to widen, it seems here. This clearly not good news for Polyev as he continues to try to find a way um, to change his sagging fortunes in a context that's becoming increasingly difficult for him by virtue of the fact, again, that the Liberals now have a majority and he has no power to be able to take down the government. And besides, he had already telegraphed when he did have it, when he could have rallied everyone around to do it, that he was too afraid to do it at the moment. He never pulled the plug. The Liberals are terrible. Everything they do is horrible, but not horrible enough for me to actually provoke an election. And now he does not have that opportunity. So he goes back to being like he was in the last two parliaments when he needed the support of at least two parties to bring the government down and was never going to get that. Here, now that we're back in a majority, once again, he can talk, he can scream, he can flap his wings, but it's irrelevant. Now he could choose. There was a comment that was made by someone um, about his statesmanship. Statesmanship. That Pierre does kind of have a choice at the moment, and that how do you put it? Let me see if I can find it here. That might make it easier for me to get to the point I want to make here. By the way, because it just popped up on my screen here, a gentleman whose name is John Roggeveen, who is the leader of the Alberta Liberal Party. It must be a very, 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 very lonely and difficult job. But if you follow his Twitter feed, actually has some rather interesting things to say and seems to be someone, even though people are not really listening to him, has a voice that maybe more people should listen to with regards to everything that is going on here, with regard to the situation in Alberta. Says, I tried to tell people Nenshi is no Notley. It's time to look elsewhere for a progressive government. And I bet you while he's tweeting that, he's doing this. Like over here, maybe. Look at us again. And of course, we have I think it is the Alberta Tory Party now that it's called, the one that's led by Peter Guthrie, who left the UCP. If he'll be doing his thing to try to get some traction, which may create some type of force that might be able to split the vote somewhat. We'll see how that works out. In addition, I believe that some people have been modeling out people's answers to questions about separation if that were to happen. And it seems the poll that I saw, or the indication that I saw, was showing 27% support for separation. And if that were in all the ridings, to see if any of the ridings would be voting it, it would it was itself in ridings. So it would if it's not just if the vote is not just straight numbers, but as sometimes is the case, it has to be a certain percentage overall, and a certain percentage in each riding, as was the case, for example, having to do with moving to a proportional representation. Then this a referendum on this could be organized in a similar manner, not just a straight number, but having a sort of like a dual bar to have to cross in order to get there. Again, theoretically, that could be the case. I would assume that Danielle Smith, given how much she has bent backwards to help the separatist cause, would put in place a dual bar. But theoretically, it's possible. All right. Looking at Pierre here, let's see if I can find some stuff here, because he's not been having the best days. Here's a moment from question period while I'm out looking for that other thing, because I'm in it anyway. Showing once again Pierre trying to go toe to toe with the Prime Minister in the House of Commons, and the Prime Minister already having an answer pretty much ready that makes Pierre look a little foolish. As you know, Cubs, the leader of the opposition, has been trying to make us believe that the Prime Minister doesn't have particularly good judgment or education, and that the Prime Minister has been wrong about everything. So let's see how that worked for him in the House Commons the other day.
This Liberal Prime Minister has been wrong about every major economic issue of the last decade. He was wrong to push for bigger and broader carbon taxes. Wrong to say that we should leave 50% of our oil in the ground. Wrong to oppose the Northern Gateway pipeline. Wrong to say COVID would lead to deflation. Wrong to say money printing would not raise the cost. Wrong to say that affordability is the best that it's been in a decade. He keeps getting it wrong, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, he repeated the same mistakes. When will he realize that the more he gets it wrong, the more the Canadian people have to pay?
Yeah. The right honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, wrong on crypto, wrong on Brexit. I could go on. But you know what this government is right on? You know what this government is right on? It's about cooperative federalism. It is working with the great province of Alberta to make sure that Canadian energy powers the world. It's about ensuring our competitiveness. It's about working with the province of Ontario, a premier that picks up my phone call and works with us to put Darlington, about building Canada strong for all.
This Prime Minister has this liberal.
Oh, oh, damn. 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 Oh, jeez. Oh, did you hear that? Not only did he start with the burn, wrong on crypto, wrong on Brexit, but ended with a burn. The premier who will actually take my call. Ooh, don't burn your tongue on that tea. Ooh. Ah, ah. Kit Linda, I know you're just like, oh God, I can't hear that dumpty again. Hopefully, seeing him be served made it worthwhile. The tea has been served. Oh my word. Yeah, he's not everything that used to be working for him just is not anymore. It's pretty much just that simple. It's just not working for him anymore. I just realized I didn't turn the light on. Let's see. Oh my God. Is that no? That's a little washed out, isn't it? Okay, that's a little weird. Because the sun now is moved away from the roof, as you can see, they don't have that little patterns there. So now the light has changed. So let's see as well what's not well for him here. Because I was looking for something specific that to bring to you with regard to that, and then I just saw that moment and was like, "Yep." Also, apparently, during that QP, there was a time where Pierre Poilievre was talking away, and the speaker had to cut him off and said, "Your time is up." Which the prime minister then came up, stood up after that when it was done, and was like, "Well, I wouldn't go. I'm not gonna go there." Oh man, could you imagine? Oh my god. Being set up with that one and choosing not to bite. Oh my god, that would be so hard. The prime minister is able to exercise incredible restraint. That's all I will say. Ah, darn. I am not able to find the other looking for, unfortunately, Kits and Cubs. It might have been deleted. So with Pierre, obviously not getting the best news. This polling data is not serving him, and then we have the prime minister coming up with a fiscal update that is better than expected on debt and deficit. That's certainly not going to help him either. And then later on in the show, we're going to talk about something that the prime minister did yesterday, which also is probably not going to help Pierre at all. Finally, Kits and Cubs, we have Doug Ford, who has gotten some really, really, really bad news. Also, polling wise, we had been talking about it on the show. We've been showing you some polling numbers and data from Doug Ford and showing a trend that was indicating more and more polls say that the conservative, the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party lead over its closest rival, whoever it is in the polling, the number of times it was at least a double-digit lead versus the number of times it was a single-digit lead, and it was becoming much more often a single-digit lead. Um, and in some cases, the lead was rather close. Um, the other day, this is dated to the 26th, the news maybe came out a little bit after, for the very first time, Ontarians who might be microdosing on hope. Let me be your pusher, so to speak. Kids and cubs. Let's oops, there's a little pop up there that came in, so let's get rid of that, and let's show you what is going on here. Boom! Take a look at that. What's that thing in the up there near the top to the right? Is that a box that is highlighted in red? And then all the way at the other end, is there some text in red rather than blue all of a sudden? Oh, yeah. Uh, if we're looking down here, this is what the PC lead has been like. February 2025, plus 17. Nanos Research, February 26, 2025, plus 22, plus 26, plus 28. Jeez. And then, there were some drops at some point here. We're in 2026, right? February here. We're starting to see some drops there. All of a sudden, it's PC plus 4, PC plus 7, PC plus 3, PC plus 8, plus 9, plus 5. And then we're getting to the closest ones here. Plus 1. Abacus data showing a drop. And look how fast this is. February 8th, plus 14. This is up with Abacus. March 8th, plus 12. April 4th, plus 8. April 19th, plus 1. That is a free fall, folks. That's a free fall. Liaison strategies, which just has a poll out showing that it would be if a leaderless Ontario Liberal Party with 38. And then the Conservatives with 36, the NDP with 20, the Greens with 4. If we're looking at liaison strategies, PC plus 7 in January, plus 4 in February, plus 3 at March. And now, the end of April, Liberals plus 2. It's slipping for Doug Ford. As I said this on the show. It's slipping from he sees it, and his internals must have shown this coming some time ago. Because this man has been erratic. Kid Saucy asks the question, has Doug Ford finally worn out his welcome? Doug Ford has a brand. One of the brand is fighting for the little guy. Well, a couple months ago, he came out and started punching down on students. Who's more of a little guy than students? They literally need to borrow money to live through a year. Do you think all that OSAP money goes to paying the tuition? No, that goes to rent and food. Yes, Kit Linda. Doug can get dangerous when he gets cornered, though. Yes. Yeah. And the more he's cornered, the more he flashes that. And the more he flashes that, the harder it becomes for people to believe that, oh, yeah, but he's such a nice guy. The folksy thing wears off when you get that flash of the real Doug. So yeah, he said he's for the little guy. Starts punching down on students. Said he is stopped the gravy train. Goes and gets himself a gravy plane. And not only does he go and gets himself a gravy plane, he announces it like a fait accompli. I've got a gravy plane. Then gets caught and says, well, it's to help all the way out in the north. And then we find out that it can only land in 10% of strips. And again, when things can be explained very quickly, gravy plane can and are so simple that everyone can understand it. He said he never would. He took your money at this particular time with everything that's going on with steel and aluminum and cars and got himself a plane. He did what? Yeah, everybody can understand it. That cuts through. This story cut through. So when you saw him in front of that podium with the eyes like this, like, gee, man, if only the media could give me a fair shake. Yeah, like he hasn't been getting like 8 years of fair freaking shakes. You know, I give my phone number to yeah. Now maybe you realize maybe why that wasn't a great idea. Because it looks like you sure got an earful because you look like you were terrified that day at the podium. And clearly you were making it up as you went along that day. Mm. Yeah. And that like I said, that's the core of his brand. And then the freedom of information requests, right? Because even though Doug Ford is probably Canada's biggest Nepo baby and didn't do much to earn his fortune, had a lot handed down to him. Even his dad was in politics beforehand. Even the political field, the terrain was prepared prior to him. And his brother was way more popular first. He just kind of shows up places, Doug Ford, and then seizes an opportunity. The leadership of the Ontario PC. Something happened to Patrick Brown, and then Doug Ford just happened to be the only person there to be picking it up. Right? Just kind of falls into places somehow. This freedom of information thing, where he's just like us. I'll give you my phone number. Just call me. Just don't ask who called me. Especially if I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing on my phone with money that's not mine. People can understand these things very easy. You don't need 5 minutes of explanation. You don't need 75,000 examples and slides. Whatnot. People can understand this stuff. The dude is torching his brand. There's nothing about a little guy being for a little guy about punching down on students. There's nothing that's for the people or against the gravy train. By getting yourself a plane and announcing that you've done it, not even like hinting that it was coming first or preparing the train for it. And there's nothing that says, oh, yeah, I'm all about transparency. And again, that I'm for you, the little guy, and for the people, like denying the people the right to know what the hell he's doing with that other hand that he's got us all on speakerphone. Even to the point that for Brian Lilly. Yes, I'm actually going to read you some Brian Lilly. I know, I know, I know, I know, I know, I know, I know. Just go with me here. Even Brian Lilly seems that he might not believe as much anymore. We are just over a month until we hit the 8th anniversary of Doug Ford being elected premier. He's had some good times and some bad times over those 8 years. Okay. And he's surprised plenty of people by surviving as long as he has, especially after his first year, God, which was a disaster. Ford has overseen tremendous growth in Ontario. Our population has increased by 2 million people since he took office, and the provincial budget has grown by 54% in that time. Contrary to popular narratives, most of the increase in government spending under Ford has gone to healthcare, with more than 50 hospital projects launched to build, expand, or upgrade facilities. And a lot of it going to private organizations for nurses and stuff and private clinics. He's launched major infrastructure projects that will benefit the province for decades. He's out of office, such as the Ontario Line subway project in Toronto or LIT projects in Hamilton, Ottawa, and Mississauga. Highway projects long delayed by former governments like the 413, the Bradford Bypass, twinning the Garden City Skyway, and expanding highways 3, 7, and 69. Okay. There's more to being a premier than building roads. And yet Ford's poll numbers are falling. The most recent Abacus data polls put Ford's PC party in a statistical tie with the leaderless Liberals, 37, and for the PCs, 36. Oh, really? Let me see that. That didn't indicate that. Okay. I think he's got the numbers inverted here. The article says the leaderless Liberals at 37, the PCs 36, but the poll is actually the other way around, with the PCs at 37, the Liberals at 36. With the NDP back at 17 and the Greens at 5, the Abacus poll has Ford at 32% among women, while the Liberals are at 42% with women. In the last Abacus poll taken before February 2025 election, where Ford's PCs took 43% of the vote, 38% of women said they would back Ford's team, compared to 31% who said they would back Bonnie Crombie's Liberals. Last year, Ford was winning with women against a progressive party led by a woman. Today, he's losing with women who are opting for a party with no leader. Asked about their desire for change, 72% of voters expressed some support for a change in government, while just 28% said Ford's PCs should be reelected. The Abacus poll isn't an outlier. Polls from Palace Data and Liaison Strategies also show a drop in support for Ford. Some of this could be due to recent troublesome headlines for him, such as the jet purchase and then reversal, or the changes to the Freedom of Information Act. But there appears to be something deeper going on. The Ford government seems adrift. They seem aimless. They have lost the reason for being writing this. The Ford government seems adrift. They seem aimless. They have lost their reason for being in power. Dude, if it seems like that, it's because it is. And we've been telling you this for the longest time. We weren't hating. We were just trying to open your eyes, dude. But hey, welcome to the party. They seem aimless. Now, of course, we've all come to learn over the past few years what their actual aims are. And they're not aimless at all. They seem to be very steadfastly dedicated to making those things happen, as incompetent as they are at going about it. But the aim is certainly not for the people to protect Ontario. That freedom of information thing is more like protect Doug Ford from Ontarians than protect Ontario. And they have lost their reason for being in power. No, they haven't lost the reason for being in power, sir. What they are doing and all the stuff that to you makes them seem adrift and aimless was their reason for being in power. You're just waking up to the fact that their reason for being in power had nothing to do with serving the public. Eight years in power. What has he improved for any Ontarian on the absolute core functions? Health, education, child welfare, post-secondary education, social services, What has he done for people? Childcare. They're off. 8 years. Hasn't made one thing when it comes to our lives easier or better or more accessible. Has a lot of legacy projects, though, that, oh boy, we're going to remember him for a long time based on the landscape of stuff that he's destroyed and changed and rebuilt and sold off. But what has he done with the core functions to serve us? Quote, why does Ford want to be premier? What does he hope to accomplish? These are questions that Ford and his team should be asking themselves, because voters are certainly wondering if he wants. No, I think it's the opposite way. I think voters are becoming very clear. We're kind of figuring out very clear what it is, why he wants to premier, what he hopes to accomplish. We're just not that down with it anymore. If he wants to run and win the next election, which he has said he will run in, Ford better have a reason for asking for a fourth mandate. In his first election, Ford benefited from facing off against the highly unpopular Kathleen Wynne after 15 years of the Liberals being in power. Voters were ready for a change, and Ford was in the right spot at the right time. Yes, he was. In 2022, he faced a weak opposition still obsessed with the COVID-19 pandemic when voters were ready to move on. In 2025, Bonnie Crombie led a chaotic campaign that was still struggling with a provincial party structure that has never recovered from their crushing 2018 defeat. When Ford faces his next opponent in a vote, likely in 2029, he will have been in power for 11 years. And his campaign manager, Corey Tenike, has said, every day you are in government, you add another pebble to the backpack you are carrying. Eventually, the weight of all of that time in office weighs on you. It impacts the way the voters see you and react. Well, gee, with the number of pebbles that guy has in his freaking backpack, I'm surprised he doesn't create a sinkhole every time he takes a step. Can Ford turn things around amid his sagging poll numbers? Absolutely he can, though doing so will require him coming up with a vision for why he should remain in power, a vision that he can sell to the public. Right now, that's lacking. Doug Ford, lacking in vision. Aimless, adrift. This is Brian Lilly. You know things are bad when? Oh man, jeez. Yeah. Doug Ford is not having a good few weeks. That's absolutely for sure. Just waiting for my screen to come back here. Kids and Cups, sorry, it's today. So yeah, there was something. Oh yes, that's the other one. Toronto Today also had a good piece on that. Kids and Cubs, which goes a little bit more, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to the brand issue here. This is from Liam Gill. We need a mandate from the people to fight against Donald Trump's tariffs. With a strong mandate, we'll be able to fight with Donald Trump to make sure we stop the tariffs. Last January, when Doug Ford announced a snap election, he was clear about the purpose. With the government set to make significant changes, Ford recognized that Ontarians needed to provide him with a specific mandate, approving his proposed actions. Ford ran a clear and simple campaign with the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario's platform, quote, to protect Ontario, focused on protecting jobs, increasing economic competitiveness, and limiting the impact of Trump's tariffs. A year later, the man who marketed himself as a protector may be the biggest threat facing Ontario. Despite receiving a mandate to protect Ontario from Donald Trump, Ford is instead passing and proposing bills that voters never approved and threatened to alter foundational elements of our democracy. As Ford did 14 months ago, it's time to recognize that he has no mandate to move forward with these proposals. If Doug Ford wants to avoid a crisis of confidence in our democracy, he must hold a referendum or election to seek a mandate for any bills that impact our democratic system. Last week, Doug Ford passed Bill 97, omnibus legislation that includes an amendment to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, fundamentally altering our democracy by effectively ending the public's ability to access high-level government decision-making records. On the same day, Doug Ford introduced the Building Billy Bishop Airport Act, which, if passed, would allow the province to take the City of Toronto's position in a tripartite agreement that governs the airport, as well as to take ownership of city lands both on the Toronto Islands and in downtown Toronto to facilitate the expansion of the airport. These actions by Doug Ford demonstrate the limits of our representative democracy. Instead of fulfilling Sorry, there's a pop-up that just appeared here. Instead of fulfilling the mandate given to him by voters, Ford is using his majority at Queen's Park to centralize power in his government and circumvent the will of the people. Polling by Abacus data shows that 73% of voters oppose the changes to the Freedom of Information laws, while only 13% support them. Doug Ford's plan to expand Billy Bishop Airport includes removing other elected officials from the decision-making process, effectively silencing local residents by replacing their judgment with his own. Ontario's representative democracy is built on a foundational trust that the government we elect will deliver on the mandates secured during the election. Doug Ford was elected to deliver on his promises, not to replace the will and voice of the people. Governments need to pass laws beyond their election platforms, but the scope and impact of Doug Ford's laws differ. Not only would the expansion of Billy Bishop Airport significantly impact Toronto's waterfront, redefining a central feature of Ontario's largest city, but it would set a precedent for the provincial government to unilaterally remove municipalities from agreements and take their lands without consultation or negotiation. That precedent could be used to remove local representatives from decision-making process across our province, from Windsor to Thunder Bay to Fort Severn to Ottawa. Changes to Freedom of Information laws also affect all Ontarians' ability to hold their government accountable for its decision-making, fundamentally altering our capacity to make informed electoral decisions. And you know how we feel about governments that get in the way of citizens' rights to cast a fully informed vote. We don't like them. And they are governments into which we believe people should dig. Media, dig. Ontarians didn't vote for a king, they voted for a representative to deliver a specific mandate on their behalf. If Doug Ford is certain that Ontarians want him to govern in secrecy and extinguish local voices, then he shouldn't be afraid to send voters to the ballot box and ask for permission. This is from Liam McGill, a former startup founder and lawyer who lives in Spadina, Fort York, and supports innovative Canadian technology startups in raising the capital required to grow and scale in Canada. Also with Doug Ford, which is really interesting, is that the public discourse on the political shows also appears to have turned rather suddenly and sharply on him, which is kind of we here on the show are hypothesizing that one of the reasons that Doug Ford is sticking so close to Carney is that he can get some of that benefit of the halo effect. I don't think that's going to work out for him very well. People are starting to see through because the upside of being next to Carney is that you could get the benefit of the halo effect. The downside of being next to Carney is that if you're someone on whom a halo might be a slightly ill-fitting, shall we say, being next to Mark Carney creates juxtaposition, allows you to see him and you in action at the same time. And we get to see, again, someone who is calm and who speaks in full sentences and actually has plans and can appeal to logic and reason, and who provides confidence and who comes with legitimacy and credibility and in whom we trust. And then we got you, folks. You might not want to stand that close to the light. It's revealing a lot about you. And it's revealing a lot about you that you are working very hard for us not to see. So yeah, that's a strategy that might not work out well for him for much longer, kits and cubs, unfortunately. Or fortunately for Ontarians, I should say. Maybe not, unfortunately for him, but rather fortunately for us. I think this was yesterday's. Yes, CTV Power play with Ashley Capellos. And there was a segment here where they were talking about Doug Ford. And I wanted to bring it to you because there's some really good insights in here, particularly with regard to brand. And the thing with brand, right? We've talked a lot about brand safety. Like, for example, when people were getting off Twitter, when Elon Musk seemed to be going like really off the deep end around the time of the Doge stuff and the um, very visible alleged use of ketamine and stuff like that. And the day his grok went Hitler for a day and stuff of the like. Um, that uh, there's how would you put it? There comes a time when the bottom kind of falls out a bit, right? This was like for Elon Musk, there was a time where he was like literally everywhere. It was almost like Donald Trump's boyfriend, right? And he was getting almost more press than the president. And then he had to go. So, like I said, some really good insights here. And we'll listen to them and we'll talk about
I think the three factors that are there are the Premier helping us by people seeing who he really is, Carney by the kind of leadership that he's providing and what that does for our brand, and the hard work that we do here and the hard work that our members do.
I think they're also seeing, the hubris of this Premier, that he thinks that he has a right to a private luxury jet to do whatever he wants with the people of Ontario's money without actually delivering the change that he has promised them.
Okay, so just a point there. That was who you just heard was NDP leader, Ontario NDP leader of the opposition, Merritt Stiles, and before that, John Fraser, who is the interim leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. I believe it's the second time he was the interim leader because I believe he was so before Bronnie Carmby, and both times has done an incredible job. One thing that the Liberals seem to do well is pick interim leaders because I remember Bob Ray as well after the whole Michael Ignatieff and Stéphane Dion thing, steadying the ship before Justin Trudeau came along. But yeah, he's been doing some very, very good work.
Ontario's opposition leaders there reacting to new polling that shows Ontario Premier Doug Ford's government is facing some turbulence in public support. Earlier this month, the Premier faced backlash after a purchase of a nearly $29 million private jet came to light. The Ford government promptly declared they'd be selling that jet, but the whole thing doesn't appear to have sat very well with Ontarians. Take a look at this. According to a new poll from Liaison Strategies, for the first time in its monthly provincial tracking, the Progressive Conservatives trail the Liberals, who do not have a permanent leader right now, and they're trailing by 2 percentage points. A new survey as well from Abacus Data found the Tories at 37%, with the Liberals at 30%. It has not been this way in a very, very long time. We did request a statement from Premier Ford's office because you heard from the opposition there in order to get their response to these new numbers and what the opposition is saying. We have not yet heard back. Let's bring back our front bench. However, Sharon Carr, Laura D'Angelo, Jamie Ellerton, and Dimitri Soudis are all here. Jamie, I'll start with you. How much do you read into this? It's certainly, I think it's most interesting just because the Liberals are leaderless. Who knows when they get a leader which direction it goes for them? But what does this say to you about the performance of the Premier lately?
I think it says the eyes of Ontarians are eyes wide open and see the struggles in this province for what they are. I think Doug Ford has benefited for a very long time from a very weak and disorganized opposition, and that the message he's selling is kind of no longer selling. I mean, he does things that are just absolutely antithetical to his brand, like buying a private jet for a guy who kind of came to public fame by trying to stop the gravy train. These are the kinds of things that have people scratching their head. People are struggling in the healthcare system. No one thinks the healthcare system's getting better, notwithstanding all the announcements of new hospitals and doctors one day maybe appearing to help ease the situation. And so I think when you look at the broader macro situation, people see Mark Carney taking on that Captain Canada role. And so the baton has been passed. and on what the provincial government actually does on a day-to-day basis, a lot of it is not stellar right now, and I think that's what you're seeing reflected in these numbers.
Yeah, I think that's great analysis, Sharon. It certainly does feel like Doug Ford went through, and his team capitalized on the moment, right? Went through this era where he couldn't have been more popular in Canada, right? I can't tell you how many people would come up to me and be like, I never really thought much, but boy, is he, I love what he's saying right now, right? That issue in Ontario has certainly receded at the political level compared to at that point in time. Is that what's driving this, do you think, or is there something else?
I think there's a few things here, and a lot of it has to do with not the actual acts, but the brand and of who he is. Doug Ford is a very endearing person. You can't help but like the guy. He swallows a bee and everyone thinks he's cute. He is Captain Canada and everyone is like, yeah, he's fighting for the country. So it's like he has this really endearing personality. But this whole issue with the plane, and again, my perspective has always been if the government needs a plane, you get a plane. But the argument here of why they got the plane doesn't line up. Is that what do they get? They got a Challenger. A Challenger can't go to Northern Canada. This whole argument that he needs it to go to the U.S., it doesn't sit well. And then to flip-flop, him and his brother, Rob Ford, were the original, I would say, politicians around the whole Stop the Gravy train. And then when you line this up with the Greenbelt, when you line it up with the FOI changes that were made down there, and when you line it up with getting a plane, returning the plane, and the flip-flopping, and then even just last week, his tone and tenor towards a Liberal MPP who he then sent an apology to, it just seems like it's chaos and his branding has shifted. And I do think people who normally don't talk about politics are talking about the plane.
Yeah, it's one of those things that actually permeates.
Exactly.
Like when we say it's in the bubble, it doesn't really feel like it was in the bubble.
Everyone is talking about the plane. So it's more about the brand. It's not who he is. And you can see that in how he's operating now.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a branding thing, Dimitri, whereas this might not have impacted other politicians in the same way, just because the for the people thing, right? That's his jam. I wonder if that's why more people than otherwise paid attention.
So a couple of points. The next provincial election is scheduled for the spring of 2029 or the spring of 2030. Brian Mulroney always used to say that Mother Teresa is not on the ballot. So who knows if Doug Ford is going to be running? Who knows if Doug Ford's going to be running for a third term, or actually a fourth, I think, at this point. Who knows who his opponent is going to be, as you said, Vashi. I think there's actually a small test coming up. It's going to be the by-election in Scarborough, where everybody will compare the results from the general election that took place in 2025 and how the Tories are going to do there. But let's always remember, Doug Ford's been there before. Before the Trump trade crisis, he was amongst the least popular premiers in Canada, and he won a stronger majority. So for the time being, it's like me asking you guys, I'll take you out for dinner in 2029. Let me know what you want to eat. It's so premature.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think also the sort of Teflon-like quality of Ford is something the opposition, if they sort of, have lived through the last number of years, would be foolish to kind of downplay at all. How do you think this is interpreted by the opposition, Laura, and in particular for the Liberals as they go through the process of picking a new leader?
I think it is a big knock on Doug Ford that they're going to try and take advantage of and keep in the news as long as possible. But the Teflon factor is very real. Doug Ford has had largely two superpowers as a politician. One is the Teflon. He seems to be able to withstand almost anything. But two, it's that he is so relatable. He seems to understand Ontarians. He seems to be able to connect with them in a way that most politicians cannot at any level. And that's why this one is hurting so much. And that is where I think the Liberals in particular, but also the NDP, are going to try to grab onto it and make it really stick to him. It does not make sense for a man who has been able to connect with Ontarians when they can't find a doctor, when things are too expensive. Even if that isn't his reality, he is so good at reflecting it back to them. A $29 million jet, when he is constantly talking about food bank usage being too high, how bad things are, doesn't make sense for his brand. It doesn't make sense for the way Ontarians see him. And that is really going to be the weak point that the Liberals and NDP are going to try to continue to push forward, and the trap they're going to try and get him into time and time again.
So the interesting thing about a lot of, and I think Sharon rattled off a number of the big, they've been pretty substantial controversies, Jamie, that the Premier has found himself in, is the opposition has never been able to capitalize on them. Otherwise he wouldn't have a third majority mandate. What is the lesson out of that for the opposition this time? Do you see anyone in the running, for example, for Liberal leader Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, Navdeep Bains, or some of the names bandied about that would mount a challenge?
I guess the answer is be ready and swallow your pride, put your ego aside, and if you're the opposition parties, you need to actually be prepared. Everyone's talking here about Teflon, but anyone who cooks eggs regularly knows your non-stick pan works until one day it doesn't, and then you grit your teeth and eat cereal and oatmeal until Saturday,
Jamie.
and you can get to Costco, and you replace it that exact same week. And so those kind of change dynamics can absolutely flip on a dime. And so I think if you're going to see the NDP and the Liberals kind of battle for a hyper-Toronto progressive political voice and spend, like, say, the last cycle, they spent all this time talking about Ontario Place. Legitimate issue, but if you're like in Cambridge, if you're in Sudbury, if you're in Niagara, do you care about Ontario Place, like when your ER's overflowed? And so, like, what they're choosing to talk about, how they sequence these things politically, ultimately is what they're going to have to get right if they want to capitalize on this potential scratch in the Teflon pan.
Last 30 seconds to you, Sharon. Is there anyone in the running that appears to you to be able to capitalize on that?
I'd say, and I have no allegiance to any candidates at this point, but I will say that there was a moment of time when no one really stood out, and with the name of former federal cabinet minister Navdeep Bains coming up over and over, I think we're seeing more excitement amongst organizers in somebody who can actually take Doug Ford on.
Okay, we shall see. As Dimitri said, we've got about 3 more years of this to talk about, so I'll leave it there. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate the discussion. Our front bench, Dimitri Soudis, Jamie Ellerton, Laura D'Angelo, and Sharon Carr. I got to take a quick commercial break here.
All right. So while Vashi takes a quick commercial break, I will come back to you. So yeah, great discussion again, right? So when you're talking about the brand and how it matters, and there are certain things when you're in the public eye that if you're going to bend the rules and you're going to push, that you can do, but there's certain things that you can't do. And one of the things that you absolutely cannot do under any circumstances go against the brand that you've worked so hard to try to establish, because then you create une disjonction. I can't remember the word in English. You create a break that you can't look past, you can't look through. It's like sort of having a crack in the mirror. It's like you can look at the mirror and you can still see yourself. But if you're really paying attention, you're always going to see the crack, right? Even if you have put it together. So it's one of those things. Breaking with your brand is absolutely, particularly in politics, disastrous. And it seems that is what has gone on here. Of course, over the last weekend, in addition to all of that, kits and cubs, there was some protests going on the 25th to what Doug Ford was doing. And Kit Uncover in the chat earlier, as we were coming on, I was reading the chat, and Kit Uncover said that I could use some of the protest video that she had acquired or had captured. I believe Belleville, if I am not mistaken. Please do correct me if I am wrong here. Kit Uncover. So I am definitely going to do this here. Okay, let's see. What have we got? Are there any timestamps that let me know? No? Okay. So let's do this one then, kits and cubs. And see if I can bring this up. Yeah, okay, it is going to work. Okay, perfect. Yay. All right, just got to click a couple of things. And once again, please accept my apology, kits and cubs, because the computer is running just a little slow. All right. There we have it. So won't show you the whole thing here because we have about 7 minutes and 31 seconds on this one. But here it says MPP Tyler Alsop at the Belleville Doug Ford protests on freedom of information requests. Let's see how that conversation or how that interaction went down a little bit. And thank you so much, Kit Uncover, for having captured these images for us.
We recently had this used to be fun come over to the camp and put together AI. But it is.
Okay, clearly it's going to be a little difficult to hear what he has to say. Let's go a little forward here and see what happens. And then we get the spinning wheel. Ah! All right. Well, I won't make you watch a spinning wheel, kids and cubs. But that we would be able to get a bit of the answer. But of course, it's a protest. So there is chanting, of course, which one would expect at a protest, of course. So there you go. But yes, they had the protests against Doug Ford and his government over the course of the weekend, and this follows protests that took place earlier at Queen's Park, mostly organized by students, or at least that featured students prominently, if not organized by students. I think that took place on March 28th, if I'm not mistaken, and that one made the news. But here, according to, whoops, that's sorry, I clicked on a video thing rather than the article. But according to Arti Thayaparan of CBC News, demonstrations are taking place or were taking place across Ontario to protest against Premier Doug Ford and several of the province's recent controversial measures, including changes to freedom of information laws and OSAP grants. Hundreds of people gathered at Queen's Park with signs and umbrellas despite the rainy weather, chanting "Doug Ford always lies, bring back FOI," and "No jets at Billy Bishop." Protester Doug Oliver said he joined the rally Saturday because residents are unhappy with the Premier's actions, which he called anti-democratic. If he's amending the FOI Act in order to prevent people from accessing things like his cell phone records, then that tells me he has something to hide, said Oliver. On a website titled Protesting Doug Ford, 55 protests are said to take place in various municipalities across the province, including Ottawa, Scarborough, Sudbury, and Waterloo. The website urged residents to write to their local member of provincial parliament to initiate a no-confidence vote to force Ford to resign. Doug Ford is tabling legislation that the people do not agree with, and that hurts Ontarians, the website states. He's making so many changes within a short time and against the wishes of the people that it quietly erodes democracy. Saturday's protests follow similar demonstrations that were held across the province last month, the ones that I mentioned there. On Friday, the Ford government's controversial omnibus budget bill received royal assent from Ontario's Lieutenant Governor, meaning changes within it are now officially law. The budget passed a vote at Queen's Park on Thursday following heated debate and chants of FOI by opposition party members. Changes from the budget will include a cap to resale ticket prices and introduction of a one-year HST rebate and a retroactive FOI law that would shield the Premier and his cabinet minister from public access to documents. And I believe I read somewhere that it goes back all the way down to 1988, which was really weird because nobody understands why the hell they needed to go back that far. Ontario's transportation minister also introduced a bill this week that would allow the province to take over Toronto's role with Billy Bishop Airport, and as part of a push to expand the island airports to include jets. Amidst chants of "Hey-ho, Doug Ford has got to go," hundreds gathered at Waterloo Town Square, with many protesting changes to the healthcare system. Protester Andrea Pence said she came to the rally to protest the province to, quote, stick to the basics and fund the existing healthcare system. She said she didn't realize how bad the system was struggling until after her mother went to hospital and eventually died a few months ago. Quote, "I'm going into my older years and I'm afraid," she said. "Seeing it firsthand, it's like the care will not be there for me." Waterloo resident Dave Minns asked the Premier to think about the needs of the common man. Quote, "Social programs are very important. They affect education, they affect medicine," he said. "Mr. Ford seems to push things to the people that have a lot more funds than people who don't." Demonstrators cheered as NDP leader Merritt Stiles spoke at the protest, saying public health care is the, quote, backbone of Canadian society and needed more funding. Quote, "It's absolutely essential and it's part of who we are as Canadians that we put patients and people ahead of profits," she said. A large crowd also gathered in Ottawa, where similar chants were heard through the streets. Fight Ford movement organizer for Ottawa, Amanda Brown, said, quote, she's sick of Ford. We want our province back because we're sick of getting thrown to the wayside so Ford can make his friends rich, she said. It's really good to see people actually come out and do something in the city instead of sitting at home and being angry at everything. We want a fresh start. Feelings at the protest were boiling over, given the many changes brought about by the province, said post-secondary student Gurneet Singh. Quote, I hate the rain, but I hate Doug Ford more right now, she said. It's people power, and I think it's really powerful that all these people are showing up. She says the number of concerns being raised by residents could mean Ford, quote, has a rude awakening ahead, especially when it comes to the next provincial election. Oshawa resident Ethan Eastwood said he's worried about the province's lack of transparency, given the, quote, the shameful changes to FOI laws. Quote, we don't get to know what Ford is doing unless he decides to tell us, said Eastwood. I don't trust him to be honest. I don't trust him to be transparent and forthcoming. He said he's worried that the next elected provincial government may not reverse changes to FOI laws, or when that might even become a possibility. Eastwood also raised concerns with Ford's recent claims that the province's $28.9 million private jet had been sold back to Bombardier, a decision that was made following immense public backlash over the purchase. Quote, I don't know that I believe him, and I would love to see those receipts, he said, adding that will now be impossible without the FOI requests. On that, Doug Ford did say that he would show the receipts, but didn't give any dates as to when that would happen, which if he does, then while you're at it, Doug, could you show us the Starlink receipts too? Just saying. In a statement to CBC News, Ministry of Finance spokesperson Sarah Chapin said the province is delivering a plan, quote, to protect Ontario and is using every tool, quote, to streamline processes and cut the unnecessary red tape that has held Ontario's economy back. She said the plan was endorsed by Ontarians when they elected the Ford government with a third record majority after last year's snap election. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Kind of missing the point there, right? On that response. So yeah, that's a lot of what is going on with Doug Ford at the moment. And so for those three leaders, Naheed Nenshi, Doug Ford, and Danielle Smith, not Danielle Smith, Naheed Nenshi, Doug Ford, and Pierre Poilievre, things at the moment are not going as best they can. Want to end this section with a comment. Simon Haga, who covers Alberta politics particularly well. We've had him as a guest once before. Very lovely gentleman who wrote about this. And then we have Evan Scrimshaw about Doug Ford, because they always have some interesting opinions here. So David Clement-Haga says here, when will the knives come out for Naheed Nenshi? The NDP is not the Conservatives, even the united ones out here in Alberta, and historically New Democrats have been more tolerant of their leaders failing than Conservatives have been of theirs. Still, there's a point at which something's got to give. It's easy to be forgiving when it's a foregone conclusion that the only victory you're likely to achieve come election night is a moral one. You'd think the fact the NDP forms the opposition with sufficient seats to be a credible government in waiting, as opposition parties are supposed to be, would change that calculation at least a bit. The poll for the CBC released by Janet Brown Opinion Research yesterday certainly suggests that, as been said in this space on numerous occasions before, whatever else you can say about the predicament which the NDP finds itself, its leader is simply not connecting with Alberta's public. The poll shows the United Conservative Party, led by Danielle Smith, continuing to hold its popularity with Alberta supporters, and the NDP under Mr. Nenshi slipping badly. Worse, from the NDP's perspective, the CBC's Jennifer Keeler wrote, the new poll, quote, suggests the UCP would likely win an even stronger majority than it boasts now, if an election were to be held today. Ms. Brown has a reputation as being the pollster with the best handle on what happens in Alberta, and whether or not that's fully deserved, she certainly has a good track record of calling these things right. So it would be extremely foolish to deny that her conclusions are probably right this time too. Indeed, they ring true to anyone who has been observing the NDP flounder, and that includes a lot of NDP supporters. Sooner or later, someone other than this blog has to ask if Mr. Nenshi is the person best suited for this job, given the policy disaster Miss Smith's government is wreaking on Alberta, especially in healthcare, which other polling suggests Albertans don't approve of. As I wrote on April 14th, if Albertans don't like what the UCP is doing but still favor Ms. Smith over Mr. Nenshi by a significant margin, the obvious conclusion is that the biggest problem faced by the NDP right now is its leader. That seems even more obvious now in light of these poll results. Given the plans the UCP has for Alberta up to and including the possibility of separation from Canada, you have to think they'll call an early election as fast as they can while they're still on a roll, and sufficient numbers of Albertans are still fooled by Miss Smith's sovereign Alberta in a united Canada shtick. If you want more evidence, the CBC story goes on to say, quote, perhaps more remarkably, the most popular political leader in the province appears to be a Liberal, to which Prime Minister Mark Carney. There's nothing remarkable about this, of course. Plenty of Albertans want to support an effective Canadian leader, and say what you will about his very conservative policy preferences. Mr. Carney is that. No one can credibly claim that Mr. Carney's policy inclination is likely to be bad for fossil fuel industry, although some Alberta politicians will surely try. A lot of Albertans have obviously concluded that Mr. Carney is strong enough a leader that we get along with the Dos Rouge à Ottawa Bleu à Québec out here in Wild Rose country. This may be a dangerous assumption, but it's clear that Mr. Nenshi is absolutely failing to deliver the message that it might be, probably because for some reason he's not even trying. As some Alberta Einstein has surely realized, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Mr. Nenshi obviously isn't going to change. Maybe the opposition needs to. It would be interesting to know what Raki Pancholi, the NDP's deputy leader, is thinking about these days. Unsurprisingly, Mental Health and Addiction Minister Rick Wilson wasn't available yesterday to explain his claim about the Albertans using... then he goes on to talk about something else here in his article. And with regard to what's going on in Ontario, here we have Mr. Scrimshaw and talking about the crisis being created. He's, quote, "We will always support you, Minister, but as your standard bearer, not as your pallbearer." My love of Yes Minister is old hat at this point to longtime readers of this site. A crucial part of my teen years, the dry British wit is a lesson in cynicism as much as it is a masterclass in comedy. And those words for Sir Humphrey, usually forgotten in favor of the famous line that comes at the end of that scene, quote, "If you're going to do this damn silly thing, don't do it in this damn silly way," are an incredible example of the show's supreme cynicism. Sir Humphrey didn't care about Hacker, he just cared about the civil service's power. Not that he'd ever say that to his political master, but that in that line, he makes clear the transactional nature of their relationship. And as I watch that scene again, I can't help but think that the Ontario PCs might be approaching that terrain with Doug Ford. The point of Doug Ford, such as there is a point to him from the PC standpoint, is that he wins elections. The point of tolerating the corruption and the stupidity and the endless nonsense that they all know better than is that he wins. You put up with the changing FOI rules retroactive to 1988 because he will keep you in a job and keep you in a ministry. You vote for higher spending and deficits than win in Dalton despite running on debt and deficit scares because you want to sit on the correct side of the house. Eventually you get to call in a favor to get your writing some patronage, or your relatively apolitical policy preference gets slipped into a key bill. You tell yourself all the bullshit is a price worth paying to get that. You don't sleep well, but you make your peace with it. But what happens when he stops winning? Kevin Rudd had what was described as a, quote, news poll faction in Australia's support amongst its Labour caucus colleagues, founded entirely on Australia's most famous and most influential poll. Despite the big swing to Labour in 2007 and the fact he was the first Labour PM in a decade, Rudd had no friends when the polls got bad, and he found himself failing to last a single full 3-year term as PM. When your only source of power is good polls, there's nothing there when the music starts to fade. Why am I getting existential on Dougie's behalf? Because it's now 2 straight polls that have essentially a tied ball game in Ontario. Abacus on Monday for the Star had the PCs up 1, and today's Liaison has a 2% OLP lead. Palace last week had a 5% PC lead, but even then a PC vote share of only 37%, in line with Abacus's 37 and Liaison's 36. I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but it's the truth at this point that this year's edition of the Ford avalanche of horribleness, the FOI changes, the OSAP cuts, the gravy plane, and the education disaster is breaking through in a way that it hasn't since the Greenbelt. That doesn't mean Ford's done. There's still a Liberal leadership race to be fought and won, and I'm deliberately not talking about Scarborough Southwest in these pages because I'm going to catch either a blood clot or a libel suit if I allow myself to get into that clusterfuck. But it does mean the faux sense of inevitability about another decade of Doug can now end. For much of the Ford era, it's felt like he's playing politics without consequences, that voters were so ill-informed or just plain stupid that they didn't know the damage he was doing. It was a crutch for progressives to blame the voters because their parties didn't do their jobs properly. Blaming the voters was always an imperfect solution, and it was a way to virtue signal our superiority. We, the good and pure majority who have never voted PCPO, have always known that Doug Ford sucks. It's just a shame that the rest of the province haven't noticed. The dirty little secret is that Ontarians have known who Doug Ford is this entire time, and they thought an imperfect premier who at least postured as being on their side was better than the useless and invisible opposition. What's changed is that the corruption, the self-dealing, and the plain idiocy is now the only thing we're getting from Ford. It's also worth pointing out that Ford's actually competent staffers aren't in Ontario right now. Tonight and Kuvalis are currently managing or mismanaging, depending on who you ask, Caroline Elliott for BC Conservative leader, meaning they've been less able to tell Doug to get his head out of his arse for a while. It's entirely possible that we look at this as something akin to what the Leafs fans' hope of 25 and 26 was, a temporary blip that will be forgotten when the previous established level of performance returns. That said, just as the Leafs might be staring down the barrel of a long rebuild without first-rounders in 2 of the next 3 drafts, the PCs might not rebound, and this may be something close to terminal without a leadership change. Ford isn't going to get cooped tomorrow, nor should the PCs be so rash. 3-majority government should earn a leader time to right the ship. But as federal Liberals saw in 2023, dismissing a short-term polling blip based on bad quotes and seemingly fixable problems is not a solution. There's no reason to be confident that Ford is Trudeau, and it's incredibly likely that Ford will bounce back. Certainly, the Liberals need to bank on the idea that Doug Ford will rally and be pleasantly shocked if he continues to be a dumbass. But the end of Doug Ford's time as premier is now a possibility. A year ago, it didn't seem that way, but now it's a lot more possible, and for a very simple reason. When the entire premise of your leadership is you kind of suck, but at least you can win, a polling dip is far more likely to be fatal. This one might be. This one might not be. Sure. But if I'm Doug, I don't want to find out what happens when 30 PC MPPs realize he's about to cost them their jobs. So yes, like I said, not good situations for all of those people. Moving on to the other part I wanted to talk about today, Unique Gillian asks, did you see Carney's address to the Skilled Trades Union? He says Canada will need an additional 1.2 million workers in the next decade or so. Yes, kitteh Gillian, I did indeed see that. And we're going to talk about it a little bit here. Yes, yesterday, the Prime Minister was in Gatineau, Quebec, just across the bridge from Ottawa, at an event that was hosted by, let me see if I make sure I can get that right, because I do not want to screw up the name of the host of the event. It was the CBTU, Canadian Building Trades Unions, I would suspect is the case here. And for those of you who are wondering what that is, I will share that information with you. So from the Canada's Building Trade Unions website, the CBTU is the national voice of over 600,000 Canadian construction workers, members of 14 international unions who work in more than 60 different trades and occupations and generate 6% of this country's GDP. Officially, CBTU is the Canadian office of North America's Buildings Trades Unions, NAB2. We work closer with our American counterparts to coordinate and support the work of our affiliates. We are also active in the American Federation of Labor, Congress of Industrial Organizations, the AFL-CIO, which works to ensure decent pay and benefits, safe jobs, respect, and fair treatment for more than 12 million members, 56 unions throughout North America. So he's there basically addressing members of 14 international unions working in more than 60 different trades. And he has some news, clearly, because he recently, or on Tuesday, delivered the fiscal update, and of course was a marquee policy in that fiscal update that consisted of $6 billion for the trades to help prepare us for the build that needs to come. As you know, Kids Cubs, the Prime Minister is on a push to attract lots of foreign investment into Canada, as well as putting in some Canadian money in order to build a series of projects that will help us become more economically independent, diversify our trade with other nations, have green components in it, have components that include indigenous ownership. And of course, the Prime Minister talks often about building inclusively and creating good union jobs, specifically in supporting the union sector with these projects. There have been some assessments being done stating that, for example, the number of people going to the trades, less than 50% of them are seeing the apprenticeships through, which means that we would have a shortage of about 23,000 skilled trade workers per year eventually when we need them. And if we're talking about putting all this money in order to create Canadian jobs, but the Canadians don't have the skills to occupy those jobs, but we got to build anyway, that means those jobs go to people that we bring in from outside, and that's not exactly what we want to do. So one of the things we need to do is prepare the terrain by having the skilled, trained, the trained skilled workforce ready to go when it comes time to build. So this is where this funding comes in to ensure that we have people going in there, that the completion rate increases, and fact, in order to ensure there's also a 2-for-1, because in these projects the Prime Minister is trying to get the most, maximize the projects, and we have a lot of money going towards the military, of course. We've increased salaries and new military housing and all that kind of stuff, and recruitment, as we've mentioned, recruitment for the reserves is at 137% of objectives for last year. Recruits, I think for the military, I think it was up 13% or something. I think that was the number, or the number of people that have been accepted into the military, maybe not the applications, up 13%. And there's a portion of this that has to do with training the reservists to have these skills, so that again they can also not only have their regular lives and working, but when there comes to be an emergency situation where we're calling upon the reserves and we might need those skills, particularly with building, that those will be within the Canadian military. Or if ever there comes a project where we need a surge of people, the Canadian military through the reserves might be able to supply them. And this package has support to help to make sure that people stay within the programs long enough to finish them, has an incentive for them to finish them, has an incentive for employers to take more chances on new apprentices. There's lots in it here that seems to be well received and well liked. So we're going to bring you to the event. There wasn't a question and answer session, so this is mainly from the Prime Minister's address here, and he's talking here in this particular section about the need for those workers, how that's going to manifest itself as time progresses, and this one just about the need of them. Just going to take a look at my notes again. Sorry, kids and cubs. But I think that this one is more, the need and what the current reality is on the ground, so that get a bit of the land. So here it is. Whoops. Why is this doing it? Very, very weird. Okay, now I'm able to get to activate the thing. So yes. And all right, the screen is already up this time. Okay, that was backwards. But since it's already up, let's just press play.
Employers won't take a chance on a first-year apprentice. En 2024,
okay, that is not correct. Oh, okay, I see what happened here. CPAC cut the thing, and now my time stamps are all wrong. I hate it. I forgot that live yesterday when I took my timestamps. Okay, kids and cubs, just give me a little tiny second here. I'll take this screen down, and hopefully I will find the spot that I am looking for here. Okay. It might be just after this section. All right. I think I might have got it. I'm so sorry for this, kids and cubs. And it's hard to do the math on the fly in my head to find the new timestamp. That is really weird. I double checked them this morning too. Okay. All right. Okay. For some reason, the times I don't know what happened to kids and cubs. I'm so sorry. Nothing is lining up. Oh, darn. I worked so hard too to get all this stuff. Okay. Hopefully, this will be it here, kids and cubs. And if it's not, I know if it's not the thing about the lay of the land, I will be what it is because I have notes for all of the sections. It's just the time for some reason is not right. And now I've gone fuzzy on top of that. Okay, here is the Prime Minister. This is not cooperating with me today. Okay. Sheesh, that was way harder than it needed to be.
$6 billion of investment in new Team Canada Strong. In workers, in skilled workers. Money well spent because Team Canada Strong is our new nationwide effort to recruit, to train, to hire up to 100,000 new Red Seal trade workers in the next 5 years. It's a serious plan. It's an urgent plan to get more young Canadians properly trained and onto job sites faster. And what does that require? It means end-to-end support, standing alongside young Canadians every step of the way, from their first interest in the trades to their first job. It means faster results. Our goal is to cut the time it takes to get certified by at least 50%. It means scale, to deliver training capacity for those extra 100,000 skilled workers. And it demands a multi-channel approach, starting with unions, including colleges, employers, the Canadian Armed Forces, and Indigenous partners. We'll provide youth aged 15 to 30 with paid entry-level trades-related work experience. This will help pave the way for apprenticeships and new careers in the skilled trades. We'll make it easier and more affordable for employers, particularly SMEs, to hire and train apprentices. And with our new Build Canada Apprentice Service, we'll provide SMEs with up to $10,000 towards a first-year apprentice's salary. De cette façon, plus de travailleurs pourront occuper un sein.
Okay, so he basically explains the program here a little bit. I'm so sorry for the stops or the stutters in the thing. This seems to be coming from the end of seems to be coming from the recording itself, which I find very odd. because none of that was happening when it was playing. But yeah, that's what's happening now. Okay, here is talking about here. I told you when I started the show that the second part, this part here, would be news that's not particularly good for Pierre Poilievre. As you can hear, as you could hear when he was describing the project, it seemed to be rather well received by the room, judging by the applause. That's the number one thing. The thing that that the Prime Minister here is doing is he's going after yet more of Pierre Poilievre's turf here strategically. You notice that a lot of the policies coming on the right, that sort of squeezes him off Pierre Poilievre off the center right territory. A lot of that vote seems to have abandoned him. They find themselves more comfortable on the law and order stuff, cutting the excise gas tax, that type of thing. The Prime Minister needs to do some stuff on affordability because nobody believes that the Conservatives will do more for affordability than any other party. Except maybe, again, the most dyed-in-the-wool Conservatives, because that's just not their thing. They don't do that. But the look is more to the NDP on the left, especially if Mr. Lewis is going to be an effective populist, also trying to push Pierre Poilievre off his turf as the guy that's going to fight for the little guy in a way that's serious. But as you know, in the last election, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives really went after the union vote, and that's one of the reasons why the NDP faltered so terribly, and because the NDP was not so much talking about workers' issues in the last election campaign, and basically ceded that territory. Well, now it looks like the Liberals are going after that territory with a program like this. And the way that it seems to be being received in the room. So, yes, he's going after the union vote most definitely, but he's also going after the young male vote, that young male demographic, men 18 to 34, 35, that Pierre Poilievre has been very popular with. This is the type of program that is really going to appeal to them. So it's not only about putting the plan in place for the country, it's also about sowing some seeds to remove some of the grass out from under the feet of Pierre Poilievre and to put it under the Prime Ministers and the Liberal parties. It's a very, very, very useful two-in-one strategy because it's something we need to do anyway. But that's going to give the Prime Minister benefit in other realms. It's also something on which the Prime Minister ran in the last election campaign, if a lot of people seem to have forgotten. But it seems that we are moving this initiative forward, maybe bringing it forward a year, because they hadn't talked about it much in the whole first year. And then boom, all of a sudden, out of the blue, here it is ready to go, and we're moving with it. So it may have been something that was planned for the second year, maybe later on, or maybe the third year, and brought forward since we had the extra money. So when people are talking about that $60 billion that came in, that we had additional money, that we are, some of which we spend a lot of it to deal with affordability issues, again with the grocery and essentials rebate, and then the excise gas cut tax. This amount, this $6 billion that's being spent, is $6 billion that we were going to spend at some point. We might just be spending it a little faster than planned because we have this opportunity. So it's not necessarily additional spending. It's probably just spending brought forward in this particular case. And then, as we mentioned to you yesterday, with the additional padding, or with the conservative accounting that the Prime Minister has done, estimating growth of 1.1% for this fiscal year, when the Bank of Canada has estimated 1.2 and the IMF is estimating 1.5, and forecasting that the price of oil for all of this year, would be $73, and it's been above it for the entirety of the year. And like I said today, we're looking at 108, 109. Those are profits. If we come in at the IMF forecast of 1.5. And we do, at the same time, rake in all that additional money from oil revenues, we will be in a situation come budget time, once again, with a sizable amount of excess money, some of which could be applied to the deficit again, and others that could be used again to save some programs that might have been on the cutting block, or to fund other initiatives or to bring them forward. So it looks like at the moment that the Prime Minister and the government is going to have lots of a good number and a cash flow to be able to respond to things on the fly as needed. That will definitely not be the government's problem here. So let's continue on here with the Prime Minister's telling the various unions, and this here you can see is where the Prime Minister really starts making a pitch for the union vote. So you have to listen to this, yes, as a Canadian, but listen to this as if you were a room, as if you were one of the members of the Canadian Building Trades Union. And you'll see there's some wording and policy things that he's highlighting that speak specifically to this group. Whoops. Hold on, kids and cubs. I forgot that the screen was not up. So let me just rewind that, make sure that I'm at the right spot. There we go. That looks good. And now let's make sure that you can see the screen too, because that's kind of important. There you go. And here's the Prime Minister.
When apprentices want to learn from the best, who do they call? They contact unions. And the federal government will support your work in training the next generation by expanding the Union Training and Innovation Program, so-called UTIP. And I've been visiting these centers. I know what they can do, and this will help upgrade union-run training centers, provide modern equipment, expand the number, obviously, of apprenticeship opportunities. Now, we know that one of the challenges, one of the reasons why it's only about a third of apprentices, as I said earlier, that are going through the process are actually finishing. One of the challenges is because of the costs, opportunity costs of being in and the cost of training. So what we're going to do with the new Team Canada Strong is ensure that an apprentice gets an extra $400 a week top-up while they're training. So that means a total of up to $16,000 in addition to employment insurance payments. And when an apprentice finishes their certification, they will get a $5,000 completion bonus as an incentive and to help them transition into work. Et parallèlement à tout cela, nous allons mettre
Okay, so we have that bit there, explaining a little bit more about what the program is going to do, but of course mentioning here that, you know, when you want to get good training, who do you go see? You go see unions specifically. So that he's appealing to them directly here. Then later on in his address, he goes on to talking about supports that have been issued for workers so far within the first year, and just general supports as well.
A year ago this week, just a year ago this week, a year ago yesterday, right? Yeah, time flies. Yesterday. A year ago this week, we were elected on a clear commitment to build a stronger Canada in the face of a more dangerous and divided world. Our plan has always been built on the foundation of workers, on builders like you. So one of our first initiatives as a government was to introduce the most comprehensive suite of workers' supports in history. We created our Buy Canadian policy, so that when we build major projects or build new homes, when we buy and manufacture new defense hardware, we're building with Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian lumber, and Canadian workers. We launched something called the Regional Tariff Response Initiative and a Strategic Response Fund to help our businesses diversify their products and access new markets in the face of U.S. tariffs. We brought in reskilling packages to train 50,000 workers impacted by tariffs. These measures have provided relief to more than 55,000 workers and enabled more than 20,000 of our fellow citizens to keep their jobs. As we build a better future for you and your family, we also recognize the challenges Canadians are facing with affordability. So we're providing a boost today for that bridge to tomorrow. Nearly half of the measures by dollar value in that spring update released yesterday are targeted to bring down costs for Canadians. That includes temporarily suspending the federal fuel excise tax, cutting taxes for 22 million middle-class Canadians, and introducing the new Canada Groceries and Essential benefits. On that one, 12 million Canadians will be getting their first checks on the 5th of June, up to $533 for a family of 4. Because we are building a Canada that's not just strong, but that's good. A Canada that's not just prosperous, but is fair. A Canada that is not just for some, most of the time, but for all of the time. Et en période d'incertitude, de menaces et de difficultés économiques, les Canadiens and Canadians.
And here, Kits and Cubs, one final passage here. So again, right, in this case here, the Prime Minister talking also specifically about supports that would be of concern to them in addition to the regular supports that he mentions in his stump speech. So that was the part that's a little different because he doesn't mention the other ones all that often, or at least as often. And then finally, here, Kits and Cubs, we get the final sort of pitch here again, where you see that he's talking specifically to union workers.
And as we built a better future, we've learned from our past. I mentioned a few moments ago the Rideau Canal. In the 19th century, yes, it transformed the economy of this region, provided a new supply route from Montreal all the way to Kingston. But it came at a huge human cost. 1,000 workers died building it. Thousands more toiled in appalling conditions. The wealth created by it accrued to the few, not the many. So today we're building differently. We're building better. We're building sustainably. We are building inclusively in full partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. And above all, we're building in solidarity with workers, creating good union jobs. Because one of the fundamental things that unions do is to help make the difference between prosperity that's seized by the few and prosperity that's shared by the many. You've always understood that it's not just what we build, but how we build. Unions have always known that we're strongest when we're united. And together, we're building for all Canadians. Together, we are building Canada strong for all. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Prime Minister saying a hoot and a holler and a very enthusiastic round of applause from those gathered from the union movement. Very good chance that this is going to create a lot of buzz and could be one of the things that start moving the momentum away from the Conservatives with regard to support from blue-collar unions for that party, which would be a good thing because those of us who have been paying attention know that that party has absolutely no intention of doing anything to help them. So, yeah, Prime Minister making an outright open call for the support of unions, basically showing up there and telling Pierre Poilievre, I intended to crowd you off your turf. Kit Linda has an answer about why the FOI bill goes back to 1988. She says it goes back to 1988 because that's when the Ontario Freedom of Information Act went into effect. So basically, just tying it all the way down to there. So not necessarily because there's somebody Doug Ford knows who did something terrible back in 1988 and needs to go back that far. I like this comment from PNC Bio here. Yes, putting your ego to the side and doing things for the benefit of everyone seems to be very hard for a lot of people. But what's funny is there's no faster way to the top than doing exactly that. And then again, when you say that, if that falls in line with what the Prime Minister said at the time, that he's running because he wants to do something, not because he wants to be something. And if people are getting that sense going about and doing his business, going about his business, I should say, then yeah, you might be onto something there. Get PNC Bio. You might be onto something. You might have your finger right on the pulse there, I would say. All right, so that's, I think, what I have with regard to that. Will be interesting to see what happens. I didn't see many news articles today about his appearance there, which was really interesting. I had to go to the Canadian Trade Building Union's site, actually, to pick up any information about that. So kind of interesting that while the video was carried, that there wasn't that many articles with regard to that. Okay, Kits and Cubs, before we go, very, very briefly, I wanted to give them more time, and I might do it in another show. But we have some good news from the world of media. As you know, Tina Yazdani, who I believe was working with CP4 and got fired because she was asking too many questions, hard-hitting questions of the premier. A lot of people wondering if maybe the premier had something to do with the fact that she was fired. Well, it seems that there is more and more media attention being brought to her story. Blog.to has a story about her speaking up after having been, she was let go from City News, not CP24, sorry, City News. She had been there for 8 years and she was let go on April 13th. There was immediate blowback, of course. And Yazdani has been thanking the community for the outpouring of support. Says, thank you all so much for the kind messages and support. It's meant the world to know my journalism has resonated with so many of you. Quote, I want to say thank you so much for all of the support and the messages. It's meant so much to know how much, my journalism and my work has resonated. These messages, Yazdani goes on to say, have helped people get through, quote, a very difficult few weeks. She goes on to say she loved her job and that her ousting came as a complete shock. Yazdani also shares that she wanted to address the matter privately with the Mega Media Corporation, but that didn't happen for the seasoned professional. So Yazdani will now, quote, take formal steps to address the situation. I hope that means she's suing. Quote, the way that my employment ended was unfair, she says. I stand by all of the journalism that I did. I stand by all of my work. I am proud of the work I did. I'm a strong believer in holding power to account and asking the tough questions. The journalist also provides followers with an update on her next career move, Kits and Cubs, and I am so excited by this. When I heard this, I jumped for joy. But she announced that she's going to take on a new role as Queen's Park reporter for The Trillium, a political outlet that she says has, quote, set the bar high. Her new position starts on Monday, May 4th. I can vouch, Kits and Cubs, The Trillium. If you go there, if you are very concerned about Ontario politics in particular, they do absolutely exceptionally good work. They definitely deserve your support in terms of viewership and finances, if you can. And that they picked up Miss Yazdani is absolutely nothing short of a coup. This is a absolutely fantastic get on the part. So a publication that is already pretty damn fabulous to start with, about to get that much better. Kits and Cubs, since we talked about it, show it to you. Miss had recorded a little bit of something to say, to convey her thanks to everyone for having offered her that support. And so therefore, why not bring it up and you. And again, Kits and Cubs, if it appears that I am stalling, I am, because things are happening a little bit at a crawl's pace over here. And I apologize for that. That should not be the case, but alas, it is. And I think they might just be in me. I might just have to take the hint, perhaps. That your computer really doesn't want you to do this right now. Maybe you should just stop. All right, here it is, Kits and Cubs. We soldier on.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to get on here and give a quick update.
Ooh.
First of all,
Okay, that is very, very low. Unfortunately, I don't think that you will be able to hear that. So I'm so sorry for that, Kits and Cubs. Let me see if I can get this to you. Maybe I might be able to hear it. So, hello, everyone. I wanted to come on here and give a quick update. I want to say thank you so much for all of your support and all of the messages. It has meant so much to me to see how much my journalism and my work has resonated. And reading those messages got me through a very difficult... I'm even having trouble hearing it, Kits and Cubs. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do this live. I'm straining myself to be able to hear it, to bring it to you. So what I will do is I will put a link instead, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Maybe you'll have a louder speaker system or something. But, I'm not willing to blast it at the current moment. So I will put the link to the video in the chat for you so that you can hear from Ms. Yazdani. But the important part here is that she is going to wind up at the Trillium, and that is going to be good for everyone because she does absolutely phenomenal work, and it would have been a shame if nobody had picked her up. Finally, Kits and Cubs, yesterday marked the debut of Canada's newest sports franchise, the WNBA expansion team of the Toronto Tempo. People were looking for some hashtags, pick up the tempo or set the tempo or something that we could put. It was an exhibition match, not season match yet, but they were playing against the Connecticut Sun, and the Toronto Tempo started out really well, after the first quarter. It was tied 20-20, and then they had a 7-point lead after the second quarter, and then had a 9-point lead after the third quarter, but fell apart in the fourth with the Connecticut Sun winning the fourth quarter by 14 points and the match 83-78. The first basket in Toronto Tempo franchise history was scored by none other than Kia Nurse. And of course, it was a 3-pointer to allow the Toronto Tempo to take a 3-2 lead. But for 3 quarters, it looked like the Toronto Tempo was on their way to a score in their first match in franchise history, even though it was still just an exhibition match. But a lot to celebrate. Looking forward to a fabulous season of competition on the part of the WNBA here. And I believe in other WNBA news, for the overall league, it seems that there's also some good news for it in that it's secured a better broadcasting contract, and it says that there will be a record of 216 of its season's matches will be broadcast or streamed this year. So that is definitely good for the sport, and hopefully the Toronto Tempo will be able to benefit from that additional exposure, Kids and Cubs. All right, Damn Fam, that is the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Listening to us because we love making this for you. Oh, excuse me. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do, especially when you share some words of your own as to why it is our content has resonated with you. And we thank you so much for all that you do on that front. Kids and Cubs, if you would like to support us in other ways, there are 2 ways that you can do so. The first way would be to scan this QR code that appears right here, and that will bring you to our YouTube page if you're not already there. And if you are already there, or if you are going there with that QR code, please smash with our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Give them a little tickle, because you know we ain't fickle. That helps us with the algorithm, and when our numbers goes up, it also makes us gets us a little bit of happy. So if you could do that, we would appreciate it. If you are watching our show not live on your cell phone within the 7 days of the broadcast, please offer us some hype points, because that helps smaller channels like ours grow. And we thank you for that. Kids and Cubs, if you would like to support us financially, because we do incur some costs to bring the show to you, we would appreciate enthusiastic of encouragement via our coffee page. If you just scan that QR code, it will bring you there. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And there you can do a one-time donation or monthly recurring donation if you would like to support us and our future projects and our growth. And of course, making sure that we can break even this year, which would be really lovely. So any help that you can offer would be appreciated, and we thank you for that. If you want to offer us through other ways, you can do it through our YouTube channel if you're there right now, through Super Chat, stickers, and membership donations. We get about 70% of your donation there. We get about 95 to 97 when you use that QR code to go to our coffee page. But if you are doing the Buy Canadian thing and want to avoid the USCE Tech Bros, well then, Kids and Cubs, you can send us an email to truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And with that email, you can send us a direct bank transfer. And when you send us a bank transfer, it goes from your Canadian institution to our Canadian institution. No USC Tech Bros get a share of your money. And the bonus is that we get 100% of your donation. So that's a good way to make a donation to us. And we thank you for that, Kids and Cubs. All donations are appreciated, no matter how small. So please do not be shy. And if you are not able to donate financially, please do not worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us. And we want to hear from you. And that same email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, is where you can send us your thoughts about the show, good, bad, or ugly, some guest suggestions, ask us questions about how we put the show together, or general questions about politics, or suggest topics you would like us to tackle. You can reach us also on our socials at True Eager, at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, also on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home. We have the Damn Fam Discord. We have the Instagram run by Kit Uncover, and we have our Beaver Bites Substack. So lots of ways for you to reach us, and of course our coffee page itself. And if you are watching on YouTube, right down here in our comment section, leave us a little word. We read everything that you write, even though we're not able to answer all of you. And we thank you for your contributions, Kits and Cubs, because everything you sent us, whether it be in word or in cash, goes back into the show to make it better for you. And Kits and Cubs, don't forget our hashtags, Kits Who Cook, Kits Who Craft, and Kits Who Cultivate, for those of you who are making something tasty, for those of you who are whipping up something creatively beautiful, and for those of you who are working in the garden and have some tips for some beginners like my Beaver Sweetie and me. All right. Let's see what else. What are we doing? Because democracy is something that you do, Kits and Cubs. If you're in British Columbia, do remember that on May 30th, it will be the results date for the BC Conservative Party. You should be getting your ballots around the 9th of May. And so make sure you fill those in, and that you vote and that you encourage everyone around you to vote if you are a member. And if you are in New Brunswick, May 11th, you will be having municipal elections. So that's coming up soon. Please be informed on your candidates, and do make sure you vote there, because municipal level is where it is absolutely most important to vote. Particularly make sure that you know who your school board trustee nominees are, if there are votes for that, and that you make sure that the people who are not wanting to ban or burn books, make sure that they don't get those seats. All right. Let's see. Quoi d'autre, mes amis? It's time for words of wisdom, I guess. Kids and Cubs. I am going to suggest today for words of wisdom, don't sweat the small stuff, man. Just don't sweat the small stuff. Have to try actively make the decision. Do I really need to worry about this? And if the answer is no, then just go on about your merry way. Man, could be a tough world out there, Kids and Cubs. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And at the count of 3, may I please have a little bit of audience participation in the form of a Mr. Beaver. Please cue the cock on 1, on 2, and on 3. Here we go. Oh, yeah, that is the good stuff. You just made my beaver heart so happy. And therefore, I have to give you a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, my lovelies, a little bit of news of some Canadians who make us proud, since we're at it. Why not, right? Why are you doing this to me today? I had it all lined up. All right. Yes. the Canadian who makes us proud that I wanted to talk about is we mentioned him once before on the show, Canadian golfer named AJ Ewart. I believe the last time we talked to he had just come out of blue or something to like finish really close to the top 10 in a PGA event, even though his world ranking was something like 300 in the world or something of the sort. Well, and this is it's his first year on the PGA Tour. He qualified last year through qualifying school. So definitely making sure that he's going to be keeping his card this year. He was at an event over the course of the weekend where it's one of those events where they paired golfers up with another, and I guess they play as a team somewhat. And I'm not, as you can tell, I'm not the biggest follower of golf in my personal life. But it was called the PGA Tour Zurich Classic of New Orleans, and they were together in this. Okay, what the hell happened to it? I'm having a real tough time today, kids and cubs. I'm so sorry. And overall in the tournament, they ended up finishing 20th overall. But so yeah, a pretty good result for him in that as well. But for a while there during the tournament, they were doing very well, and it was looking like that they might have had a chance to get a top 10 finish. But yeah, it seems that he just keeps on showing up at these tournaments and picking up top 20 as top 20 finishes here. So very happy for his success here at Kits and Cubs. And a couple of more people who are making us proud. The World Mixed Doubles Curling Championships are taking place, and Team Canada did finish first atop of its pool with 7 wins and 1 loss, and is going into the playoffs. And at the same time, there are the world's men and women's curling senior curling championships going on. All of these events are taking place in Sweden, and both the men's and women's teams are perfect 3-0 in their pool play, with 1 match left to play before they go to playoffs. And for those of you who are interested, Kits and Cubs, because you're so fascinated by it at the Olympics, the Canadian Wheelchair Curling Championships happen to be taking place in Boucherville. And if you go on Facebook to Wheelchair Curling Canada, you will find links to be able to watch those matches. They don't have the setup quite like at the Olympics, where you're going to get to see from overhead cameras going all the way. But they do have a way for you to enjoy the matches. And I believe that there are 8 Canadian teams battling it out for the Canadian Championship there. So if you wanted to keep your newfound love of wheelchair curling going, that's the way that you can do it. And I'm really hoping that Curling Canada is able to make a deal so as that can be brought to TV after all the popularity that it experienced. It would be nice for the national championships to actually have some TV carriage, or at least on CBC Gem or on CBC Sports, so that we could watch it, and they can get a bit of a boost because they've definitely worked hard to get the acclaim and appreciation of the public. And now that has been done, we should have plenty of more opportunities to be able to celebrate their success and cheer them on. At least that is my personal belief. As well, Kits and Cubs, to those events, there is also, I think I mentioned this. No, in cycling, yes, road cycling. There were 2 Canadians that finished in the top 10 of the Liège-Bastogne-Liège Femmes one-day race in Belgium. Isabella Holmgren was the top Canadian, finishing 6th, and that put her 8 seconds ahead of Canada's reigning world champion of the women's road race, Magdalene Vallière, who finished a little behind her, but still in the top 10. 4 days later, Vallière had placed 6th, while Holmgren was 9th at La Flèche Wallonne Femme race. So there you go, kids and cubs. Our athletes making us proud all around the world. That's all I have for you today. So I am going to say amour et bisous, and we will see you tomorrow morning on the show. And we will have more interesting things. Maybe if it's slow news, can get to some things that I've had jotted down since the weekend, but haven't been able to get to because it's been a rather eventful week. But hey, bask, additional words of wisdom, bask in the delight, if you are in Ontario, of Doug Ford. Perhaps this may be the beginning of the end of him. So, of course, he's in power for a long time yet, but this may be the beginning of the end. And since we're microdosing hope, we'll take that. Until tomorrow, à demain. Bye, everyone.